Thank you for listening to this free audiobook providing by Supreme Audiobooks. This work is in the public domain. We passionately create and share audiobooks for free. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button to join our community. Share your thoughts, questions, and feedback in the comments section below. Thank you and enjoy this work.
Introduction of War Prison Diary. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Barry Eads. War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. Introduction. The book to which these lines form an introduction is a peculiar one in many respects. It is a story, but it is a true story, and written years ago with little idea that it would ever come into this form. The writer has been induced only recently by the advice of friends and by his own feeling that such a production would be appreciated to present what, at the time it was being made up, was merely a means of occupying a mind which had to contemplate only the horrors of a situation from which death would have been, and was to thousands, a happy relief. This book is essentially different from any other that has been published concerning the Civil War or any of its incidents. Those who have had any such experience as the writer will see its truthfulness at once, and to all other readers it is commended as a statement of actual happenings by one who experienced them to the fullest. In the following pages is given an account of the daily life of the writer while confined in Pemberton, Barrett's, Libby, Andersonville, and other Southern prisons. This was my second experience of Southern prison life. When captured the first time, we were not treated as badly as the second time, and no detailed account was kept of each day's doings. An account of my first capture, however, may be of interest. On February 26, 1863, my regiment, the 13th Pennsylvania Cavalry, then encamped at Winchester, Virginia, was ordered out on a scouting expedition up the Shenandoah Valley and to rout out what was thought to be a band of rebel foragers or raiders. We captured 8 or 10 of them and drove the remainder into the camp of the 11th Virginia Rebel Regiment at Woodstock, some 20 miles from Winchester. We then started for camp, our horses almost played out. On our return at Fisher's Hill, we were met by a large force of the enemy, who were lined up on both flanks and who opened fire on us. Of course, it was a decoy to lead us on and capture the regiment. We had a hand-to-hand fight for over half an hour, but their force and position were too much for us, and we were forced to retreat. Our loss in killed, wounded, and captured was 108. I had my horse shot under me at Strasburg, and along with 50 others were taken prisoners and conveyed to Richmond and put in Libby prison. We were confined there until May 26, when we were exchanged and rejoined our regiment at Winchester. We had fighting almost every day while in the Shenandoah Valley. In June, we were transferred to the Army of the Potomac and put in the Cavalry Corps, General D. McGregg's 2nd Division and General I. P. Gregg's 2nd Brigade. End of introduction. Section 1 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 1. October 10th, 1863. At Jeffersonville, Virginia. A reconnoitering party of my regiment, the 13th, attacked by Mosby at 11 p.m., fell back to the regiment. 11th. Moved forward this morning to Culpeper in the rear of the army. Heavy cannonading. My regiment detached. Rear guard put on picket in the evening at Hazel River. Enemy in our front and strong signs of fight. 12th. About 6 this morning enemy appeared in our front and drove in our pickets, skirmishing all day, assisted by the 4th Pennsylvania Cavalry. At 5 p.m. we were overpowered, cut off from the division, and 127 of our regiment, among whom was your humble servant, were compelled to surrender. All the prisoners were dismounted. The enemy proved to be the advance of General Lee's army. Remained prisoner at Jefferson all night. 13th. The rebels took us to Harrington and then back to Jefferson. Had nothing to eat these 2 days, and men very hungry. 14th. Marched from Jefferson through Sulphur Springs to Culpeper. Distance about 20 miles. Got some biscuit and raw bacon, which the men ate with great relish. Took the cars for Gordonsville and remained here all night. The men tired. The guards strict and will not allow us to purchase anything. Prisoners searched and everything taken from us. Some of the boys hide money in their shoes and stockings to prevent the rebels getting it. 15th. Quite cool here and feel the loss of my overcoat and boots. I hope they will not do the scoundrel who took them any good. 16th. Took the cars this morning for Richmond. We arrived here at 3 p.m. Men tired and hungry. Marched from depot through the principal streets to the Pemberton building, opposite Libby. Got 1/4 pound bread and 1/4 pound of beef. This is the second time we got anything to eat since we were captured. 17th. Rations this morning consisted of about 1/2 pound of bread and 4 ounces of beef to each man for the next 24 hours. Men thinking of home and friends and anxious to be paroled or exchanged. Talk of moving us to Libby, opposite here. They say it is a great deal worse than here, but I think it can hardly be any worse than this place. 18th. 400 of us were removed this morning to Libby, weak and hungry. From the corner of a dingy brick building in one of the streets of Richmond, Virginia, may be seen a sign which tells the passers-by that Libby and Son, ship chandlers and grocers, invite their patrons to this as the place where their business was conducted and where they must repair who were interested in bargains particularly associated with their vocation. It was not of sufficient importance in time of peace to obtain a very wide celebrity. Neither were the owners thereof so distinguished as to be of great notoriety. But as the inauguration of war had induced many into office, who were hitherto obscure and unknown, so the contingencies of our civil strife have opened this place to public gaze and made it famous, or rather infamous, before the world, besides confirming lustreless fame upon the proprietors. The very name of Libby has become synonymous with that of terror. It carries tyranny and oppression in its simple sound. The soldier who is taken prisoner in Virginia Vale is at once haunted with visions of this darksome den, and shrinks from entering a place so full of bitter experiences as this is known to be. Fierce hate and revenge reign supreme here, and consequently there is wrought out a system of discipline which produces a condition such as we might expect when the discordant elements of beings rage unchecked, and we are not surprised to find the culmination reached in almost fiendish expression. Thousands who have been in Libby will rehearse the story of their misery, want, and woe to others. These will pass them along to other listeners still, so that the echo will scarcely die out at the remotest period of the present generation. Households in coming time will gather about the fireside and talk of their friends and ancestors who ended their days in so much wretchedness because of their attachment to the Union, and as their bravery and heroism, their courage and constancy is admired, so it will be with malice and fury their persecutors are condemned. It may be, and probably is, one of the essentials of war that places be provided for the confinement of prisoners, but they do not necessarily include every species of torment which the human is capable of conceiving. They should not naturally presuppose the absence of all humanity and the annihilation of every condition of comfortable existence, as they have seemed to do in almost every part of the South, where the Confederate authorities have opened these dens. The nights are very cold, and there being nothing but grating in the windows, the men were obliged to walk the whole night long to keep from freezing, and if they can meet with the friendly embrace of slumber at all, it was during the day when the sun would shed its kindly beams upon us and so impart sufficient warmth to our bodies to keep us from shivering. I have seen men draw their bean soup in their shoes for want of a cup or plate of any kind to put it in. And what seemed worse than all the rest was the almost satanic rule that if a prisoner was caught resting his eyes upon the glad scenes of nature through a window, he must be quickly translated from the earth by a ball of a musket. The whole thing is atrocious in the extreme, but we can expect little else under the dome of the Confederate Capitol, where the original framers of secession go in and out. Of the numbers who have been admitted within the walls of the Libby building, I can scarcely speak, for multitudes have been conveyed thither, to remain only such time as they can be transported to other places. Of the many thousands who have found transient homes here, I think their united testimony will be the same as mine. The Libby building is 3 stories high and 80 feet in width and 110 feet in length. In front, the first story is on a level with the street, allowing a space for a tier of dungeons under the sidewalk. But in the rear, the land sloped away till the basement floor rose above the ground. Upon passing inside, we enter a room about 40 feet wide and 100 feet deep, with bare brick walls, a rough plank floor, and narrow, dingy windows. This room, with 5 others of similar size, and 2 basements floored with earth and filled with debris, compose the famous Libby prison, in which for months thousands of the best and bravest men that ever went to battle have been confined and allowed to rot, starve, and be overrun with vermin, perish with cold, breathe stifling, tainted atmosphere, no space allowed us to rest by day, and lying down at night wormed and dovetailed together like so many fish in a basket. The name of Libby Prison will appear to the mind and memory of all Union soldiers as that place where all manner of cruelties have been practiced, and will not be forgotten as long as one of them treads the earth. Oh, my country, the misery and hardships I am suffering for thee. Some of us had been secretly warned that we were going to be searched, and that our money and all our valuables would be taken from us. We hid our money in our shoe soles, buttons, and in any manner we thought would outwit the rebels. While we were thus engaged, a cruel-looking rebel officer came in, followed by 3 rebel soldiers bearing a table and blank books. The officer called out, "Attention, prisoners, form in line." Some guards were in front and rear of us, and we were ordered not to move or talk. The officer then said, "I am Major Turner, Provost Marshal of the City of Richmond, C.S.A. I am under instructions for my government to have you surrender to me your money and valuables. Your name, company, and regiment will be carefully entered in this book, and when you are exchanged or paroled, it will all be returned to you, for which I pledge the honor of the Confederate government. I now give you an opportunity to save your money, and when I am through taking that which you surrender, you will be searched by men who are experts, and all they find will be confiscated." One of our men requested permission to ask a question. It was granted. The comrade said, "Major Turner, as much as you are acting in the matter of the Confederate government, will you, as its agent, give us receipts of that government for our money?" "No, sir. I am not here to fool my time away. I am ready to receive your money and valuables." Considerable money was given up. The searching gang came in, and they understood their calling. The money put in the brass buttons was lost. They tried the button with the jaw of a knife, and if the button did not mash, it was cut off because there was something in it. They found considerable money, but some was so well secured that it was not found. It is needless to say that we never had returned to us any of the money we gave up. October 19th. Rations today, half a pound of bread and 4 ounces of beef. Our guards changed yesterday. I think we now have a better set of fellows than those we had. They are more anxious to trade with us. Greenbacks in great demand. 7 Confederate dollars for one of Uncle Sam's. 20th. Rations about the same as yesterday. We are thinking of home and friends. I have written a letter to my mother in Bristol, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, to let her know of my capture and where I am. I hope she will get it, as I am anxious to hear from home. 21st. Rations served out early this morning. I have forgotten to mention before that there are about 600 prisoners in this room, divided into squads of 20. One man draws the rations for the 20 and cuts it up. Each man has a number from 1 to 20. The 20 rations are put out separately on the floor, and one turns his back, and the sergeant points to a ration and says, "Who takes this?" And the man with his back turned to the ration says, 1, 2, 5, or 10, as the case may be, on up till the 20 are served. This is done to prevent the sergeant from showing any favor to any particular one. 22nd. Rations the same as yesterday. The men despondent and anxious to get paroled or exchanged soon. There is a great deal of trading going on here in the evenings. 23rd. Rations very small today. A mixture of cornmeal and flour, and only get about 4 ounces of that, and about 3 ounces of raw, half-rotten bacon for the next 24 hours. 24th. Rations about the same as yesterday. Great rumors of a parole this morning. I wish they would hurry, as we are tired of this place and treatment. 25th. Half a loaf of cornbread and about a mouthful of beef. The rebels say their men only get the same amount. I hardly credit that, as they have an opportunity to get more. 26th. Greenbacks in great demand this morning. 9 in Confederate for 1 greenback, as they are called here. So you see Yankee money is considered the best by far here in the hotbed of secession. 27th. Prisoners busy making bone rings, toothpicks, chains, etc., and selling them to the guards, and selling boots, shoes, shirts, blankets, and in fact anything in order to get something to eat. Men very hungry, a great many weak and sick with hunger. Little we thought we would ever be in this predicament. I wonder if our government knows how we are treated. I hardly think the rebel prisoners in the North are treated like we unfortunate beings. 28th. No change in our rations. We hardly get enough food to sustain life. We cannot live on this treatment long. Some of the prisoners snatch bread and sausage from the guards who want to trade. They snatch it in the dark and then run among the crowd, and of course the guards go in after them, but trade in the dark for Confederate money. We will do almost anything to get something to eat. Some of the poor fellows are in such a state of starvation that they are reduced to mere skeletons and cannot live very long. 29th. Rations about 3/4 of a pound of bread, no meat, but a bucketful of bean soup for each 20 men, about 20 beans to the bucket. Nothing more than warm water. It has the name of bean soup, and that is all. Oh, what stuff! But we are glad to get almost anything to try to stop the cravings of hunger. God help us! If our friends in the North would see us and the pitiful condition we are in, it would bring tears to their eyes. Fathers, brothers, and lovers doomed to a death of starvation among the FFVs in the sunny South, that land of boasted benevolence. Oh, what a pity that so many brave fellows must die this way. Better for us if they would take us out in an open space and place us before a battery of cannon and blew us to pieces, than have us dying this way by inches. Someone will have a tremendous account to settle at the last day. To fall in battle is bad enough, but to be doomed to a hell of torture and misery is worse than 1,000 deaths. 30th. Rations the same as yesterday. The guards are more careful in trading, and it is dangerous to snatch any more from them. They swear they will shoot. 10 of our men were taken out to the hospital from here this morning. That is the last of them, poor fellows. There were 2 of my regiment among them. We will never see them any more, as they are more dead than alive. 31st. Rations about half a pound of bread and about 4 ounces of beef today. These are the best rations we have received for over a week. Men very anxious to be exchanged so that we can get into our lines once more. End of section 1. Section 2 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 2. November 1, 1863. Some of the prisoners altering $1 greenbacks into tens and succeed in passing them on the guards, who were furious when they discovered the fraud, but they have no redress as they are not allowed to trade with the prisoners. The guards content themselves by vowing vengeance. The second. Great talk of sending us to Pemberton Building, our old quarters opposite here. They say they must make room for some officers that were captured and that Libby is going to be for them, so that all the officers will be in one place. Well, I think that the change will be for the better for us, as Pemberton is much brighter and we will have the sun shining in on us almost all the day, and that is quite a comfort, for in this place we cannot see the sun more than 2 hours any day. Third, moved to Pemberton this morning, and as a consequence we did not get our rations till 3 o'clock this afternoon. Almost starved, waiting, and not much when we did get it. 4 ounces of bread and 2 ounces of beef. Fourth, things same as yesterday. Fifth, rations a little better today. Guard shot at one of the prisoners this morning because he was looking out of the window. The rebels shoot a prisoner for looking at the light of heaven. Sixth, no change in the program today. Have nothing of interest to put down in my diary but hardships and misery, and plenty of that. No one can form an idea of what suffering there is here, and no pen can describe the hardships we have to endure, all through bad management in some department, either Union or Rebel. There is talk of sending a petition to Washington to see if we cannot be gotten out of here. Our government should not allow its citizens and soldiers to remain in Rebel prisons to rot and die. The rebels blame our government. Seventh, about a dozen of our men taken to the hospital, among them one of my company. Don't expect to see the poor fellow again. One of the guards said today that they only take them to the hospital to get them ready for burial, and advised us all to stay where we are if we had anyone to care for us, as at the hospital the doctors are all young fellows who have no experience and only practice on the prisoners. The old doctors are with the army tending to their own men. Eighth, saw Captain D.B. Meany of my company at the window in Libby opposite here. They say that the officers have all they can to eat. I wish we could say so. Ninth, rations 3/4 of a pound of corn dodger and about a half pint of bean soup for today. We are used to this, and there is no use grumbling, but make the best of it. 10th, great excitement in the building this morning. One of the guards said we would be on our way home in a week. I hope so. Richmond and I willingly part. There is something the matter today. We can hear the bells ringing. The guards say they are rejoicing over some victory. I hope not. I don't want to hear anything like that. 11th, rations about the same, no change. Boys are getting slim of clothing, and in consequence are almost frozen these mornings. This place is filthy and full of graybacks. 12th, there is great talk of our government going to send us something to eat. We would rather they would send for us. We would not require much coaxing. 13th, rations half a loaf of cornbread to last till this time tomorrow. The doctor is in the building now, and he is examining the sick, sending the worst cases to the hospital. He said our government is sending us provisions, and that they are at City Point now. Well, if that is the case, there is very little chance for parole or exchange this year. 14th, it is hardly worth my while to say what we had to eat today, but I must say something. Can see the rebel capital and the dirty rag on top. We have a good view of it from here. It stands on high ground, almost in the center of the city. Half a loaf of corn dodger and a spoonful of molasses today. 15th, doctor in again this morning and sent 5 to the hospital. One of the prisoners died here last night. Cannot learn his name, but he is from some New York regiment. The doctor said the provisions from our lines arrived this morning. One of the guards said he was going to have some of the Yankee grub, or it would not be his fault. I expect they will get more of it than we will. 16th, 1 month in Richmond today. Little I thought they would keep us a month in this place. Rations very poor today. 17th, Reported today that all the Yankees in Richmond are going to be vaccinated. 18th. I went to the canal this morning with a squad of prisoners to get some water. Saw my captain, D.B. Meany, and had a friendly salute from him. He threw me a loaf of corn dodger. It was a godsend, for I was very hungry. 19th. Nothing but a half a loaf of dodger today. The guards say that Uncle Sam's rations will be issued to us tomorrow. 2 prisoners died this afternoon from starvation. What fine-looking fellows they were 1 month ago. Now they are mere skeletons. 20th. First of Uncle Sam's rations today. 1/4 pound of corn dodger, large biscuits, and about half a pound of corned beef. Men feel more cheerful. 21st. Rations about the same as yesterday. Prisoners in high glee and think that something is going to happen when there is such a change in the program. 22nd. Great excitement this morning about the exchange of prisoners. The prisoned officers across the street in Libby shout to us that all is right now, that the cartel has been resumed and all hands are going to be exchanged. 23rd. Rations about the same as yesterday and we feel better. The Rebs say we will get fat now since we are getting the extra rations. I think there are some here who will never get fat. Poor fellows. I have not received an answer to the letter I sent my mother in Bristol. Sent another today. Told her to send me a box for a Christmas present and put some shirts and notions in it. The rebel officers in charge of us say that any of the prisoners who wish to send word home for anything like clothing and edibles could receive them, as an agreement has been entered into by the commissioners on both sides. 24th. Rations good today. Have as much as we want now. Some of the prisoners who are weak eat too much since the U.S. rations came in and it almost killed them. Several taken to the hospital this morning in a poor condition. They are never taken from here until they are about dead. 25th. Very cold last night and a cold rain this morning. This is hard on us, as we have hardly any clothing. And oh, how filthy it is here. The prisoners busy themselves 2 or 3 times a day to try and rid themselves of the vermin which are crawling all around. There are about 300 of us on this floor, and as many more on the second and third. The following is a poem composed by one of my fellow prisoners and which I have copied. 300 we are, all shattered and worn, some by shells and bullets torn. 300 we are, in one small room, paled by air and poisonous gloom. 300 patriots, mark it well, from many a quite northern dell. Bow our kindred, bow in shame, we have lost our manhood's name. And to our general's stern decree we bow a feeble, childish knee. Crawl like worms, the freemen spurn, the oil of pride has ceased to burn. Who is the general, you may say, that drills our noble boys this way? Their manhood's gone, they lap the dust, like worms shrink from a foeman's thrust. My boy with craven heart left not the shadow of our humble cot. My husband, brother too, are there, no braver have their country's prayer. Yet mothers, sisters, wives, 'tis true, who pity us will pity you. Starvation is our general's name, let history write the page of shame. He comes at early dawn, at noon, at night he whirls his pale platoon, in ghastly line against the wall, like shades of death's Erebus hall. His white pageant of polished bone gleamed like a mounted marble stone. His sword clanks against a fleshless thigh, he views us with a nervous eye. Like castanets his gauntlets play upon his bloodless arm all day. And bow we must, with hearts so drear, like the humble beings we all are here. 'Tis general starvation, mother dear, I know 'twill bring the willing tear. When I shall all the horrors tell, who reigns within this noisome cell, and starts my hand to trembling now, and brings beads of sweat to my heated brow. 'Tis he who at my elbow sits, and ever for my vision flits, that makes this form a tottering pile, or crawling like the beast of guile. His edicts, though cruel they be, fall heavier on you than me. Yet, mother, when the time shall come, and this sad wreck of life reach home, the altar of his soul shall burn, no more on earth, the smoldering urn, alone shall give a flickering flame to light the dying soldier's name. Nation's need he can no more supply. Go for your country and nobly die. Those were my words through battle's storms. My heart has kept them ever warm. And now must this country a father be, an ever faithful friend to thee. One scanty meal per day he brings on 24 leaden wings. These wings are ours, long and rife with clamoring elements of life. Harrowing howls with senseless cry, with bloodless lips and sockless eye. Sits the grim visage of despair and peers in with idiotic stare, while patience waits and faints and dies. Richmond, Virginia, Libby Prison, November 1st, 1863. 26th. Rations very good for the last 4 or 5 days, but am afraid it will not last long. 27th. Rations for today, 3/4 of a pound of biscuit and half a pound of beef. The doctor paid us a visit and said we were getting fat living so high. The guards will not allow us any privileges at all and say their government ought to shoot every damn Yankee that is captured. 28th. Bitter cold last night. No blankets. Some of the prisoners have hardly enough clothing to cover their nakedness. Rebels took almost everything when we were captured. 29th. 2 doctors here this morning, and they say that all hands must be vaccinated at once, that being their orders from the Confederate government. No rations to be issued in this room till the work is performed, so the quicker it is done, the better. 30th. Sergeant Webb of my company, B-13 PVC, and myself were vaccinated yesterday and immediately washed it off and put the cloth on again to close the guard's eye. Usual quantity of rations, raining hard, prisoners making bone rings, trinkets, etc. They want to take something home to remember this infernal place. I, for myself, need no reminder. End of section 2. Section 3 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 3. December 1, 1863. Rations not as large as yesterday, but it does not do any good to growl. This building was formerly a tobacco warehouse, 30 feet wide and 90 feet deep, and contains 3 floors. There are about 700 prisoners here, and a dirtier, smokier, drearier, and more unhealthy place I cannot imagine where so many are huddled together. The poor fellows have little or no clothing, and what we have is filthy and ragged. We are compelled to eat and sleep as best we can. We are treated more like hogs than men. Just think of it, about 300 men in a space 30 by 90 feet lying all over the floor. If you want to go from one place to another, you have to walk on top of those who are lying down. Then you are called all the fancy names imaginable. Very fancy indeed. It is a wonder some of them are not black in the face in the morning after using such language. Pity the poor fellow who is caught walking, for he is sure to get a sore head, as they shove him from one to another until they almost knock the daylights out of him. One poor unfortunate fellow got badly pounded last night. There is very little mercy shown, so the best thing to do is to lie still until daylight. If we have to endure this long, I venture to say 1/2 of us will die before a month with disease. Second, rations a little better than yesterday. I hardly know what to put in my diary. It is always the same old thing, but I must do something to pass away the time besides catching graybacks. If they once get the best of you, it is a great deal of trouble to get rid of them. Some of the men here are neglecting to do it, and they are so despondent and do not seem to care what will become of themselves, and of course that makes it bad for those who are trying to keep themselves clear. Language will fail to convey any of the intense wretchedness one is compelled to endure in prison life in the South. A few who are themselves actors in the tragic scenes may rehearse the story of our individual experience and thus furnish a key, as it were, to unlock the gates through which others may enter and take a look. This is the only way in which the people at large can become acquainted with this thrilling portion of the war, and authentic and reliable statements are, therefore, of deep interest and importance. Third, rations took a little change this morning. Half a loaf of cornbread instead of biscuit, and about 6 ounces of beef, and about a half a pint of soup. Some of the men have nothing to put their soup in, and there is a great borrowing of cups, as not one half of the prisoners have anything to get their rations in, and in many instances use their hats and shoes for that purpose. The guards say we are lucky compared with the prisoners in the other buildings in Richmond. Rumor says that 1,500 prisoners have arrived in Richmond inside of 10 days. Fourth, rations about the same as yesterday. No change worth mentioning. Fifth, prisoners at the old trade of exchanging with the guards for tobacco. I am glad I do not use the weed. Rations, 4 biscuits and about 4 ounces of pork and half a pint of bean soup for today. Froze hard last night and quite a snow this morning. The guards say it is an unusual thing for this section. We can see the rebel capital from here and a flag on each end of it. From the view I can get from the windows here, Richmond appears to be quite a large place and contains some handsome buildings. Our windows are iron barred like a northern prison, and the guards will shoot anyone who sticks his hands out or gets too close to the bars. Sixth, rations same as yesterday. The guards say to us, "Ewans are eatin' Ewans' rations fast, and Ewans will soon have to eat the corn dodger like we'uns." That is the southern dialect. Seventh, doctors in this morning examining the sick. A great many of the prisoners have sore arms from the effect of the vaccination. The doctors say they cannot account for it. Without it is that our blood is in poor condition. For the life of me, I cannot see how it could be otherwise in such an infernal place as this. Eighth, things beginning to look blue for us since the cutting down of the U.S. rations. We now only receive about half the quantity we did formerly. Several of the boys taken out to the hospital today with their arms in a dreadful condition. I am glad that I washed my vaccination out, or I would be in the same fix as those poor fellows. Ninth, rations 2 biscuits and about 4 ounces of pork per man. 10th, half a loaf of corn dodger, 2 biscuits and 4 ounces of beef, better than yesterday. We are glad of that, as yesterday's rations did not last long. I am under the weather today and cannot do or say much. One thing I must do as long as I can sit up, and that is what we call louse. We are not particular who sees us, for all must perform the same work 2 or 3 times a day. 11th, some of the prisoners have died from the effects of the vaccination, which gave them such sore arms. It is distressing to hear the moans of the poor fellows. They say that the vaccine was poisoned purposely to kill us. One of the guards boasted of it and said it was true. One of the prisoners was taken out to the hospital and had his arm amputated below the shoulder. The young doctors say they must have something to practice on, and that a Yankee will answer the purpose as well as anything else. Rations the same as yesterday. 12th, 2 months a prisoner today. What a change in my condition. I believe I am 25 pounds lighter. When I came in here I was clean and in good health. Now I am in poor health, and I am sorry to say dirty, and my rags are full of vermin. 13th, rations for today 3 biscuits and about 4 ounces of beef, better than we have received for some time. 14th, quite sick this morning and cannot get up off the floor. A severe headache, neck and head swollen. Cannot go after my rations. I feel so bad, but I hope I will be better tomorrow. 15th, not any better today. I have not tasted anything since this time yesterday. 16th, a little better this morning, almost frozen, lying on the ground without anything under or over me. I ate a little soup today. I don't care for the rations. 17th, feel much better today. I think it must be a heavy cold that I have, as I feel my bones all sore. About 300 cavalry prisoners passed by here this morning on their way to Barrett's prison, about 2 blocks down from us. They were well fixed. The most of them have their overcoats and look well. Poor fellows, they won't look so well 2 months from now. 18th. One half of the prisoners will die from sore arms. They say that it is the same in the rest of the Richmond prisons. Some of the best men in the world are almost falling to pieces through the treachery and malice of the doctor against the Northern soldier. Brady of my company died today from the effects of the vaccine, his arm almost falling off. Poor fellow, how he suffered. This is getting to be a horribly sickening place, with suffering of all kinds, disease, and starvation. 19th. Prison rations about the same. Not enough change for the last 3 or 4 days to mention. The rebel guards say that there are 5 or 6 amputations every day now in the hospital, and it gives the young doctors a chance to practice in that line. While we were talking, one of the guards came up and said he was on guard at the hospital day before yesterday, and was a witness to 12 amputations in 4 hours, 3 dying while under the influence of ether. The guards say they will all die, as there is no care taken of them after the amputation. 20th. The rebel quartermaster came into the building this morning and read off a long list of names, saying there were boxes for them from the north and to come and get them. While he was reading off the list, you could have heard a pin drop. Among the list was my name. Oh, how glad I was when I heard that name. About 20 of us went over to the quartermaster's storehouse, and sure enough, the boxes were there. We had to open them in the presence of the officer and 2 of the guards. He took everything out that he thought unlawful to pass into our hands. He took a book from my box called The Collegians of Ireland, but I said nothing, for if I did, he would not let me have it at all. So I carried the box over to the prison on my shoulder. A happier set of fellows never walked into Pemberton than we, with the boxes. The other poor fellows gathered around us to see the good things from home. My box contained 1 large sweet cake, tea, coffee and sugar, salt, pepper, writing paper and envelopes, 2 pairs of drawers and shirts, which I needed badly, stockings, and several other things very useful in a place like this. It came in time for a Christmas present and more appreciated than any I ever received. 21st. Some of those that received boxes yesterday had some of the things stolen from them last night. Mine is safe. I had some tea this morning. How good it tasted. Gave some to 3 or 4 of the sick boys who are close to me. I wish I had enough to give them all some. 3 or 4 of us belonging to the one company are going to keep watch over it by turns. And, of course, I have to pony up with them. If I don't do that, it will all be stolen from me in one night. 22nd. Prison rations I care very little for at present. I forgot to say I received a ham and 2 dried beef tongues. How I do enjoy to go to my box and take a piece of boiled ham. I think it is the best thing I ever ate. 23rd. I don't feel very well this morning. Probably been eating too much. I must be a little careful how I eat. It is very strange I do not get a letter from home. I sent 2, and they must have received them, or I would not have received the box. 3 of us who received boxes got one of the guards to bring us in an armful of wood for us to cook our tea and coffee, and we paid him $3 in Confederate money, which is equal to 30 cents in our money. 24th. Webb and Gallagher, 2 of my company, watched my box last night. Culberson and myself go on watch tonight. There is a great deal of stealing among the prisoners, and starvation is the cause of it all. 25th. Christmas Day, 1863, and still in the Confederacy. Thinking of our friends at home, enjoying themselves, and the condition we are in. The most barbarous country would hardly treat a prisoner thus. One of my regiment died last night. It was a relief to a great deal of suffering. There was a hole under his arm large enough to put your fist in. Rations, 2 biscuits, half a loaf of corn dodger, and 2 spoonfuls of molasses for our Christmas present, but I will attend to my box today. The Richmond papers state that the stench from the prison is endangering the health and the lives of all in the city, and it would be well to remove these Lincoln hirelings to where scant fare and cold weather would reduce them in number. Consequently, we will be removed to Belle Isle. 26. Great talk of sending us to Belle Isle, but I hope they won't, for it has a dreadful name and there is no shelter there. To take us out of this building and put us on Belle Island would wind up our career, as 2/3 of us have barely enough clothing to cover our nakedness, not speaking of keeping us from freezing. 27th. Orders given for us to be ready to go to Belle Isle at 2 o'clock this afternoon, and pass the balance of the winter there. There are a great many of the prisoners here who cannot walk, and of course must be left behind. All hands move as soon as they get their rations, so the quartermaster said, and get over to Belle Isle. Tote all your dirty rags with you uns, as we won't have them here with we uns. One of the boys spoke up and said we would leave them with him for a New Year's present. I did not think so many of our number were disabled. I really believe that 1/2 of them cannot get up. What agony when comrades must part in this way, knowing full well that we will never see each other again. 2 brothers from a New York regiment, one of them almost dead and the other was taking care of him, and now they must part. They tried hard not to be parted, but they were not allowed to stay together. This is part of the horrors of war. Some of the boys did shed tears, notwithstanding their hardened hearts. 28th. About 500 of us marched from Pemberton Prison across the bridge to the other side of the James River, opposite Richmond, and then crossed a small bridge which brought us to Belle Isle. The space to be occupied by the prisoners is about 6 acres, enclosed by an earthwork 3 or 4 feet high and with a ditch about 5 feet deep and 6 wide, to prevent any of the prisoners coming near to the grounds. There are about 5,000 prisoners here. The part occupied by us is a low, sandy, barren waste, without the shadow of a single tree, and exposed to the chilly, damp winds, with only a few tents, with which about half of our number are protected from the severe cold, and the other half are lying on the ground between the tents to keep the cold wind from them as much as possible. 29th. I was lucky in getting into one of the tents, so did Webb and Culberson. The reason we got in this tent was on account of what we had in our haversack out of the boxes. There are 10 of us in this tent, if I may call it that, and I promised to pony up with them. Webb and I went to work and made a large can of coffee for all hands. Those poor fellows, how they enjoyed it. This is a horrible place. Pemberton we thought was bad, but nothing compared to Belle Isle. Very cold last night. 30th. Rations for the next 24 hours. About 3/4 pound of corn dodger and 2 spoonfuls of molasses to each man. Prisoners dying very fast here. A number of Pemberton men died last night. They say Uncle Sam's rations are all gone. Resorted to box and got a cup of tea, some cake and ham. 31st. 400 more crossed from Barrett's prison for here this morning. It is dreadfully cold on the island this morning. It is not strange that life under these circumstances should become weary. It is a sad thing to have established on the pages of history. These poor defenseless soldiers, not only to be deprived of their arms, which were so much their pride to bear and their glory to wield, but also deprived of every personal comfort and convenience, and compelled to lie down exposed to the frowning elements of nature, and the still more pitiless abuse of mankind. It were scarcely possible to conceive of more persistent wholesale misery, deliberately heaped upon men, than agents of Southern malice have poured upon their Northern kindred. The tortures of the Inquisition were horrible, and we shrink with horror as we peruse the history of that period. Those terrible pages telling us how the flames rose from the fast kindling faggots and curled above the form of the martyrs as they were tied to the stake, have a power to stir our souls within us to their utmost depth. But who will say they are more dreadful than the slow burnings which eat out the vitals, leaving the tenement of clay a mere wreck before the spirit quits its frail abode? More to be feared than the lightning which prevents the play of life, more sure than the anaconda's grasp or the tiger's embrace. There are some of these things which have to be taken as the natural consequences of war, but some of them are not. We know that the misfortunes and chances of war are privations, exposures, and suffering, which is the inevitable lot of those who engage in the service, but we seldom hear our willing soldiers complain of these. It is the inhuman and inexcusable treatment they receive as prisoners. They bear their misfortunes bravely and patriotically, blaming only the conduct of our merciless enemies. Later in the history of this war, the people will become acquainted with the treatment of Union soldiers in the various Southern prisons. End of section 3. Section 4 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recorded by Barry Eads. Section 4. January 1, 1864. 10 or 12 died last night, one out of my regiment. About one half of the prisoners that were captured at the time I was are sick. Rations very small, and the good things that I got from home are almost gone. Second, rations 3/4 of a pound of corn dodger and a pint of bean soup for the next 24 hours. Hardly any one of the prisoners have anything to get their soup in, and it would make your heart bleed to see the poor fellows trying to get their soup in their caps or anything that will hold it. 200 more prisoners came in here this morning. They were captured at the Rapidan. They have their overcoats and blankets. Lucky fellows, as they will have to sleep in the open air and on frosty ground. Third, received a letter from my mother this morning. It was dated Bristol, November 15th, 1863. There were about 400 letters for the boys. Walter Webb, my comrade, was very sick this morning. Made him a little tea. I must keep the tea and coffee for ourselves in case of sickness. Some of the new prisoners have plenty of money and keep up a general trading with the guards, buying butter, eggs, and wheat bread. I forgot to mention that we are divided into squads of 20, and one man goes outside prison lines with the guard and brings in 3 sticks cordwood for every 20 men, and after that is divided up, we have to wait our turn for the axe, there being only 3 on the island. We have not received any soup since we came here. We look like a lot of colored persons. Fourth, great demand for greenbacks, 10 in Confederate for one of ours. Prison rations the same for the last 4 or 5 days. Several fellows had their feet frozen last night and quite a number taken to the hospital this morning. A little time on this island will soon make one a fit subject for the hospital. Fifth, heavy rains this morning and freezing. Poor fellows sitting around small fires in some of the tents with wet green wood burning. Sixth, rations same as yesterday. Great many of the prisoners sick now. Belle Isle's history will be dreadful. Seventh, rations today, half a loaf of cornbread and half a pint of boiled rice. Eighth, rations same as yesterday. Have a little left from the box yet, but very careful of it. Had a cup of coffee this morning. Froze hard last night, and about 600 of the prisoners who came in last night were almost frozen to death, not having any shelter. Ninth, no change in the rations for the last 2 or 3 days. The part of the island I occupy is the part nearest Richmond and washed on both sides by the James River. At the place where the river unites again, the point of land running in between is very narrow, and here the prisoners meet in hundreds all day long to wash and draw water. You may think it is a very nice place, but no person can form any idea of Belle Isle as it appeared to us unfortunate creatures. It is very much crowded now, about 8 or 9,000 prisoners being here, naked and hungry, and shivering with cold and suffering with vermin. And then you cannot walk 5 yards without meeting men answering to the call of nature, diarrhea being very prevalent, rendering the camp a wilderness of filth which requires a company of prison police to clean every day. Hogs are better cared for than us poor prisoners who are in the South. I wonder if our government knows how we are suffering in this hell upon earth. 10th. Rations half a loaf of cornbread. Froze hard again last night. 11th. Rations as usual. The same kind and quantity. No change whatever in the bill of fare. Sometimes when I look around and see so many fine fellows carried out dead, I think I will not write any more in my diary, expecting that the same will soon be my lot, and my diary would never be sent home to my friends. But then, again, I think I may probably pull through, and that spurs me on. It occupies my mind for a time at least. 12th. No change in rations. One of the prisoners was shot at by a guard this morning. The poor fellow saw a small piece of wood near the ditch, and in attempting to pick it up, he fell on the ice, and as he was straightening himself up, a guard shot him through the lungs. He died in about an hour afterwards. Our lives are not safe here for one moment. A sentinel may at any time of the day or night deliberately shoot any prisoner or fire into a group, and he is not even taken off his post or the least attention paid to it. 13th. Rations half a loaf of some kind of stuff. I don't know what to call it. It is cobs all ground up and raw. Also half a pint of rice. 14th. Resorted to the contents of the box this morning. Rations half a loaf of bread and 2 small raw turnips. The rebels say the turnips will give us an appetite and help us digest the corn dodger. 15th. It is reported that the flag of truce boat arrived this morning with political prisoners and that they are going to send a boatload of us north. I do hope that I will be one of the lucky ones. Rations a little better than usual. 16th. Some of the guards reported that Commissioner Auld, rebel, went to City Point to meet General Butler to make arrangements for exchange of prisoners. Rations same as yesterday. 17th. About 500 more prisoners came on the island today from Richmond. They say they are going to send all the Yankees they have in Richmond on this island, so as to freeze them and get rid of them. Rations about the same. It is hardly worthwhile to mention rations and the quantity. There is not enough change to be of any importance. 18th. Railroad trains running all night towards the south. The guards say they are sending reinforcements to Longstreet, who, the rebel papers say, was badly cut up. 19th. 3 men found dead this morning, dying of starvation. No rations at all today. Many taken to the hospital. 20th. Rations 3/4 of a pound of bread, half a pint of boiled rice, and about a gill of molasses. They say it is to make up for not getting anything yesterday. 21st. The prison police receive extra rations, and well they earn it. They carry the filth away in tubs and empty it in the James River. Heavy rain last night and this morning. 22nd. We got rice soup and dodger this morning. One prisoner stabbed another today, the result of an altercation. 23rd. Great joy this morning owing to the news of a speedy exchange and that every prisoner in Richmond and vicinity would be paroled or exchanged before the 1st of the month. 24th and 25th. Nothing transpiring. 26th. Guards report great excitement in Richmond about our cavalry making a raid on the city. 31st. Rations for the last 4 or 5 days the same, and I thought it was no use to use my diary, as I had nothing to put in it but starvation and suffering. February 2nd, 1864. About 500 prisoners came in here today. They were captured at the Rapidan, and they say our army is in fine condition for the spring campaign. Some of them cannot eat the prison rations, and as they have money, they can trade with the guards. They can get $100 in Confederate notes for a $10 bill of our money. 5th. The prisoners who arrived the 2nd bought some beans, eggs, and sausages from the guards and cannot get them cooked right. It is making them sick to eat it. I saw one of the prisoners gather up what one of them vomited, wash it off, cook it over again, and eat it. Starvation will make us do anything. Orders received here this morning that some of us would be sent to Pemberton prison and from there to City Point for exchange. About 500 of us were taken out this afternoon and brought over to the old place. Some say for exchange, but others say that we are going to be sent to Georgia. 7th. Saw Captain Meany of my company, had a friendly salute from him. He made signs with his hands indicating that we were bound for Georgia. Rations today just twice as much as we received on Belle Isle. The men are in good spirits, thinking they are going to be exchanged. Some new prisoners came in today, and they were taken to Libby to be searched. Reports have it that Kilpatrick is making a raid on Richmond. The guards will not talk to us. One of them fired a shot from the guardroom up through the floor. The ball passed through the third floor. On its way, it struck one of the men on the finger and smashed it. Another man was struck on the head, but not fatally, while standing at the window, and 2 other prisoners had narrow escapes, having been fired at. Possibly they are furious because of Kilpatrick's raid. It is evident they are alarmed at something. 8th. Left building this morning at 4 o'clock and marched to the depot and took the cars. The guards say we are going to Georgia. That is the exchange. Each man receives a loaf of cornbread as he marches out of the building. There are 600 of us, about 60 of us packed in each car. No seats, but lying in all positions, tall, swearing, and fighting. Remain in the cars all night. 9th. Arrived here at Raleigh, North Carolina, at 4 p.m., and will remain here all night. 10th. 4 or 5 prisoners made their escape last night, and several died in the cars. Started for Branchville, South Carolina this morning. 11th. Arrived at Branchville this afternoon and changed cars and guards. Last time we will change until we get to Andersonville, Georgia. 12th. Several prisoners jumped off the cars on the Georgia Central Railroad in the night and made their escape. Several men too sick to take from Raleigh, so were left behind. 13th. Drawing close to Macon, Georgia, and the guards say we will remain there till morning and get something to eat. Arrived at Macon at about 9 p.m. 14th. Start out for Andersonville this morning. It is about 40 miles from here, and we expect to get there about 2 o'clock this afternoon. I wish we were there, for I am tired of being in these old freight cars for the last 4 or 5 days. End of section 4. Section 5 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 5. Andersonville. February 15th. Our train, after groaning and creaking along for 5 or 6 days, during which time there were many adventures, escapes, and recaptures, at last reached its destination. The trip from Macon was nearly south over a railroad passing through a continuous stretch of dense pine woods and vine-tangled swamps. After a run of 60 miles from Macon, we stopped in a clearing, where there were few houses, and which we learned was Andersonville. We were taken from the cars to an open piece of ground just east of the station. Looking eastward about a quarter of a mile, we could see an immense stockade. The last few days of our journey we had no water and suffered from thirst. The car that I was in had been used for hauling lime, and had half an inch of lime on the floor. When they loaded us in at Richmond, Virginia, they put about 60 men in each car, and any moving around would stir up the dust. Our lips and tongues seemed parched and cracked. 2 died in our car on this trip. There was a small brook within 2 rods of us, but the guard line was between us and the water. I was pleading with the guards to let us go to the water, when a little grinning-faced rebel captain on a gray horse rode up and shook a revolver in my face and said, "You blankety-blank Yankee, you must wait, or you got so much water what you drown pretty quick." He rode around us several times, bounding high in his saddle, flourishing a revolver, and swearing at the guards and us alternately. By this time we learned that this was Captain Wirz, the commander of the prison. We were ordered forward towards the big stockade, moving quietly and painfully along, our spirits almost crushed within us, urged on by the double file of guards on either side of our column of ragged, lousy skeletons, who scarce had strength to run away if given an opportunity. We neared the wall of great square logs and massive wooden gates. that were to shut out hope and life from nearly all of us forever. The cheerless sight near the gate of a pile of ghastly dead, the eyes of which shone with a stony glitter, the faces black with smoky grime and pinched with pain and hunger, the long matted hair and almost fleshless frames swarming with vermin, gave us some idea that a like fate awaited us inside. The guards, knowing our desperation, used every precaution to prevent a break. The artillerymen stood with lanyard in hand at their canister, shotted guns being trained to sweep the gates. All being ready, the huge bolts were drawn and the gates swung open on their massive iron hinges, and we marched into that hell on earth. We felt we were cut off from the world and completely at the mercy of our cruel keepers. The creek that runs through this pen was pointed out to us, and a rush was made for it, as we were nearly dead from thirst. The water soon became cloudy, and two comrades, to get the clean water, pushed above the dead line, and not knowing the danger, reached beyond it, and both dropped dead in the water, shot by the guards on the wall or stockade. We dared not move their bodies until ordered to do so by a rebel officer, who was some time in getting around. The water, remaining red with our comrades' blood, stopped the drinking until their bodies were removed. We had not been in the stockade 15 minutes until two of our number were ready for the dead pile we had seen outside the gates. The poor fellows, however, missed the horrible torture which was planned for them and us, and which, if I knew I had to pass through again, I would cross the dead line and ask the guards to show me mercy by tearing my body with the ball and buckshot from their old musket. About 20 rods southwest from the southern gates, on high ground overlooking the prison, was a large log house, wherein were quartered the rebel officers. The Confederate flag floated from a pole in front of the house. Near this pole were two cannons or signal guns, used to warn the whole rebel force in case the prisoners attempted to break out. At various places between the gate and the house there were different instruments of torture, viz., stocks, thumbscrews, barbed iron collars, shackles, ball and chain, etc. There were three kinds of stocks: one in which the prisoner stood on his tiptoes, his hands protruding over a piece of timber under which his head is crowded forward, another timber forcing the small of his back forward. In the second stocks, the prisoners sit on the ground with hands and feet elevated and fastened to a framework in front of him. In the third stocks there was a horizontal frame, the prisoner lying on his back with hands and feet fastened, the head being fixed in a standing headboard which moved outward until the body was in painful tension. These instruments of torture were brought from where they had evidently been used to hold slaves in obedience. Our prison keepers seemed to handle them with familiarity. About half a mile northwest from the pen is a large sandy field, where the dead are carted and packed in trenches without boxes, coffins, or clothes, and but a scanty covering of earth. Time drags slowly by, and we feel utterly God-forsaken and beyond the limits of civilization, our praying bands petitioning the Almighty to soften the hearts of our cruel keepers. The Confederate soldiers who did the fighting at the front seldom ever robbed their prisoners. My experience was that they were well-meaning, humane, and honorable, and would divide their drink and rations with their captives. They honestly believed they were fighting for their rights, and of them I have no word of complaint to offer. The rebel quartermaster, with an eye to business, put up a shanty about the middle of the northern half of the prison, and appointed two of our Jay Goulds and put them in charge of it. He then supplied them on commission with meal, peas, salt, sweet potatoes, tobacco, and any article which it was thought would draw hidden money from the Yanks. We call this the sutler's shop. Its goods were sold at incredible prices. A teaspoonful of salt, 25 cents; a small biscuit, 50 cents; turnips, 25 cents each; sweet potatoes, 25 cents each, and other things in proportion. The famished skeletons would stand around and look in on the good things, then consult their money, then their stomachs, and the money was turned over for the article. No one, except he was there in the prison, can form anything like a correct idea of our appearance about this time. We had been in prison nearly 5 months, and our clothing was worn out. A number were entirely naked. Some would have a ragged shirt and no pants. Some had pants and no shirt. Another would have shoes and a cap and nothing else. Their flesh was wasted away, leaving the chafy, weather-beaten skin drawn tight over the bones, the hip bones and shoulders standing out. Their faces and exposed parts of their bodies were covered with smoky black soot from the dense smoke of pitch pine we had hovered over, and our long matted hair was stiff and black with the same substance, which water would have no effect on, and soap was not to be had. I would not attempt to describe the sick and dying, who could now be seen on every side. The prison lot contains about 30 acres, located on 2 hills with a swamp between and a small stream running through the swamp. In this swamp the men of both hills meet to draw water, wash, etc. We are served with raw rations consisting of cornmeal and a small piece of bacon, so the men have to cook for themselves. A large number have nothing to cook in and bake little cakes on pieces of boards held before the fire. The prisoners are divided into detachments of 270 men, each of these detachments being subdivided into 3 companies of 90, with a sergeant in charge of each 90. He takes their names, company and regiment, and also their occupation and descriptive list, and when and where captured. Roll is called every morning, and each sergeant must account for his men, and if he fails to do so, his company is kept in line or ranks until the absentees are found. 16th. Rations today: 1 pint of cornmeal, about 4 ounces of bacon, and a spoonful of salt. Cook it the best we can. 17th. Yesterday a company of my detachment rode a Jew on a rail about the camp. He was absent from roll call, and the company did not get their rations until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, instead of 9 in the morning. 18th. There were only 500 prisoners here when we first came, but they are coming fast. 2 trains a day for the last 3 days. There must be in the neighborhood of 2,000 here now. 19th. Raining hard this morning. We were told that this was an elegant place for prisoners, a fine stream of water and comfortable quarters, but we know better now. You would pity us to see from 5 to 20 around a small fire, trying to make mush in a canteen and bake cakes on a board. 20th. There are no buildings or tents of any kind, but lie out on the ground. Some of the fellows dig holes in the ground, and when it is cold or rainy they crawl in and are somewhat protected. 21st. I only wish I had some of the good things received from home, but alas, that was all gone 2 weeks ago. There is a wooden fence or wall around this pen, 15 feet high. It is made of strong logs put close together and sunk 5 feet in the ground. The guards walk on a platform, their heads and shoulders above the top of the fence. About 500 more prisoners arrived today from our old quarters, Belle Isle. They look as hard as ever. 22nd. Washington's birthday. Thinking of friends at home. 23rd. Rations the same for the last 4 or 5 days. The rebels have a large pack of bloodhounds for the purpose of hunting up any of the prisoners who might happen to escape. But I cannot see how anyone can get out of this pen. It is so strong, and guards are stationed all around, every 50 yards in full view. They call out the number of their post. It is quite amusing to hear them yell out every once in a while such words as these: "The Yankees are safe and the North is trembling." "Make Georgia's soil rich with the black abolitionists." "Bury them deep, let the Crows have them." "Free the nigger and enslave the whites," and all the slurs they can think of. 24th. Rations: 1 sanitary cupful of cornmeal and about 3 ounces of half-rotten bacon. Each man got about 2 spoonfuls of soft soap, something we needed very badly. I have an idea that it would take about 2 pounds to take the black off some of us. 25th. 500 prisoners today from Belle Isle. Prisoners getting sick fast. 4 deaths yesterday. A great many can hardly walk to the swamp. 26. Rations a great deal better. Over a cupful of meal and about half a pound of corned beef. Men busy all day sitting in the sun and picking themselves. I believe there is scarcely a pair of shoes in the whole place. Prisoners all in their bare feet. When it rains, a few of them who have old blankets tie two of them together and stretch it over a pole and keep part of the rain and the night dew off. 10 died yesterday and last night. What a sight! We are pretty looking soldiers now. 27th. More prisoners today. The rebels say they are going to send every damned Yankee that is in the Confederacy here before 2 months. 5 more deaths yesterday and last night. Ye sons of Columbia, give ear to my story. Come hear what I say, and your blood will run cold. 'Tis of the poor prisoners confined down in Georgia, but what they have suffered can never be told. Deserted by friends and ill-treated by foeman, starvation and hunger from morning till night. And the hopes of our freedom can ne'er be awaking. Our visions of hope are almost out of sight. There is Lincoln and Seward, Gideon Wells and old Butler, who figure so high in this American war. They must be devoid of all humanity and pity, and resolved to leave us die where we are. In Richmond, in Danville, besides down in Georgia, our bones they lie bleaching above the red sand. Although for our friends we may weep broken-hearted, we may never return to our own native land. When Lincoln came out with his great proclamation, resolved, as he said, all the darkies to free, he did not consider the mistake he was making until it had spread o'er the land of the free. When Butler tried to exchange us poor prisoners, the negro rose up and stood in the way, and Lincoln declared if he did not get Pompey, the white and the black man together must stay. And now to our fate we have bowed in submission, although hundreds and thousands are laid in the dust. 2/3 of our number, the whole world may wonder, are laid 'neath the soil to molder and rust. Although our kind friends at home are waiting for those that may ne'er again answer the call, 'tis those fathers and mothers and sisters and brothers all sigh that their friends in this manner must fall. 28th. Rations the same as yesterday. There is plenty of firewood here just now, but how long it will last is hard to tell, as new prisoners are coming in all the time. 5 deaths last night. Raining hard this morning and cool, but not as cold as it was on the island. Quite a number sick. 29th. Rations a little better this morning. About half a pint of meal and half a pound of salt junk. We can live on that. The guards were reinforced today, and they also brought 4 pieces of cannon here. They say they are going to make a slaughter pen out of this place. A great number of the guards are boys and crippled old men. End of section 5. Section 6 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 6. March 1st, 1864. Rations reduced to half a pint of meal and 4 ounces of salt beef. We were also given a little soft soap. 4 prisoners died last night. When a prisoner dies here, if his name can be ascertained, it is written on a piece of paper and pinned on his breast, and then the body is hauled away in a wagon, one body thrown on top of the other, head to feet, in a previously dug ditch. These ditches are dug in rows about 200 feet long and 3 feet deep, and about enough space between each row for a horse and wagon to drive. Second, no change in food today. Men busy over the fire making cakes, mush, coffee, and a variety of things, all out of cornmeal. We can beat the cooks at home. Our recipes are varied and numerous. Third, 4 ounces of bacon today instead of beef. We prefer bacon, for then we can get grease to fry our mush with. The bloodhounds make an awful noise when the keeper takes them out for practice, or drill as we call it. One of the prisoners smothered to death last night. His hole in the ground, which he used as a shelter, caved in on him. 4th, nothing but a quart of cornmeal today. I don't believe I weigh 100 pounds. Have been quite sick since yesterday and don't feel like doing anything, but will try and keep up, for it will not do to let your courage run down in a place like this. 5th, more prisoners arrived last night. They say Richmond is thinning out fast, but I can assure you Andersonville is full. 10 died yesterday. A great many have sore arms, that member dropping off completely, caused by the insertion of the poison in Richmond. 9th, I have been quite sick for the last 4 days, and have not been able to attend to my diary. Well, there was nothing to mention except that a large number died. 10th, I am no better today and cannot do anything. Walter Webb gets my rations and makes a little coffee for me out of cornmeal. 13th, I am a little better today and took a walk to the swamp to wash and feel a little refreshed. 14th, about 500 prisoners came in from Richmond last night. 15th, I feel considerably better this morning, although my bones are all sore and I am quite stiff. 16th, rations, a sanitary cupful of cornmeal and 6 ounces of beef. 8 or 10 deaths yesterday and last night. 500 prisoners arrived from our old quarters at Richmond. 19th, nothing new last 2 or 3 days. Walter Webb of my company, very sick today. Poor fellow, I must attend to him, as he did all he could for me when I was sick. We are going to take care of each other as long as we can. 20th, no change in rations. Webb is no better today. More prisoners from Richmond just came in. It is cool here nights and morning, but pleasant during the day. Webb, Culberson, Gallagher, and I have 2 blankets which we make to serve as a tent. 21st, some beans and a little soup added to the rations today. Webb is a little better, but Culberson is now sick. 30th, nothing to say for several days, but I must do something. A large number of prisoners arrived from Danville Prison. It is getting very much crowded here. April 1st, 1864. More prisoners from the neighborhood of Richmond, Virginia. Squads of 4 to 6 men are let outside of the gates each day to gather firewood for each 90 men. The poor fellows can't carry much, but they are glad to get out and get some fresh air. 2nd, rations, the usual quantity of cornmeal and 6 or 8 ounces of rotten beef, but it must be eaten. The filth and vermin in this place is horrible. O humanity, O Christianity, where art thou? Not in the Southern Confederacy, that I can testify to. Some strangers, men and women, came in here the other day, and when they saw our condition, they turned up their noses and laughed. 3rd, they say that 3 or 4 of our men, while out in the woods for firewood, overpowered the guard, took his musket from him, stripped him of his clothing, and then took him 15 miles away and allowed him to go. 4th, rations, pig feed, cornmeal, about 3 ounces of salt pork, and half a pint of beans. 3 men above mentioned were pursued, overtaken, and brought back here today, and ball and chain put on them. 5th, some more prisoners tried to get away last night. Captain Wurz, the commander, is greatly excited. He rode through the camp on his horse, and no prisoner dared speak to him. 6th, considerable fighting and stealing among the prisoners. It is not safe for one to have $1 or a good overcoat, for you would be waylaid and killed if necessary to gain possession of the coveted articles. It is said there is a regular organized gang of thieves here. Deaths are on the increase all the time, from 25 to 40 dropping off a day. The sun is quite warm now. God help us if they keep us in this filth during the hot weather. The deadline is claiming its victims, and the stocks and various instruments of torture are being patronized. The deep-toned baying of the bloodhounds breaks the morning stillness of the forest and swamps. Some poor fellow has got beyond the guards and is being chased down. The sound of the hounds dies away, and instead we hear the faraway tooting of a horn and the rebel cheer. The runaway is caught. In time they appear with him. He is led, bleeding and torn to the stocks, and fastened in the infernal machine. The maggot flies deposit their eggs in his wounds, and he is punished for 10 or 12 hours and then turned into the prison with wounds uncared for. A few days later we see him, a working mass of maggots. The raiders, or prison thieves, are getting bold. They are known as the Collins Raiders and are growing fat from their plunder, while many in the pen are starving to death. The prison is crowded to its very edge, and it is impossible to keep from getting near the deadline. There are hundreds of crazy men in the pen who, in spite of our watching, would get to the deadline, and many sane men would calmly fold their arms and step across it to end their misery. The guards in shooting the men nearly always wound or kill one who was not near the line. The bullet would pass through the body of the man it was intended for, and glancing on through the pen, would find a lodging place in some innocent man's body. The number shot in this way could be counted by the scores. We were constantly in as much danger of being shot here as at the battlefront. 8th. Great many of the prisoners sick with rheumatism, diarrhea, scurvy, and dropsy, and a great many are carried off. The hospital was removed outside of the stockade today to make room for more prisoners. The stream of water that passes through here runs from west to east, dividing the camp into 2 equal parts. The rebel camps are north and south of this stream, with breastworks and battery of artillery on each corner. South and east are the cookhouses, and west of all is the railroad depot, about 3/4 of a mile away. The rebels wash their clothing and themselves in this stream. Horses and mules are driven into it to drink. Buckets, tubs, and kettles belonging to the rebel camp and cookhouses are washed here, and all the filth of the camps thrown into it, and then it runs through to us. We have to use it, although it is literally alive with vermin and filth of all kinds. If our friends could see us, I know it would make many weep to see the thousands of their fellows who only a short time ago held their heads high in honor and pride, keeping step to the soul-stirring martial music, now rotting in filth and apparently forgotten by their government. Just think of it. 75 deaths have occurred in the last 24 hours. At that rate, it will not be long until we are all gone. There are about 18,000 prisoners here now, and more coming in all the time. One shot by the guard today. 12th. Have not written in my diary the last 3 days. During that time, 300 prisoners died. Rations for the last week very fair. Corn cob meal and a little over a half pound of beef. 13th. Getting quite warm, which occasions a great many deaths. 14th. More prisoners made their escape last night. It is said they dug a hole under the stockade and got out that way. Captain Wurz is wild. Says his hounds will make short work of them. 15th. Some more prisoners came in today. I did not learn where they came from, but, judging by their appearance, they have been captured recently. They have overcoats and blankets. 16th. Wurz gave orders to the guards that if any prisoner approaches the deadline, shoot him on the spot, and if a crowd congregates near the entrance, for the artillery to open fire on them. 17th. Learned today that Sergeant Hope of Company C, 13th, my regiment, died in Richmond. A number of boxes came today. Some of the prisoners are dissatisfied with their friends at home for their seeming forgetfulness. 18th. About 500 more prisoners came in today from Cahaba, Alabama. Bernard Tolan, Company D, died today. 19th. Over 100 deaths the last 2 days. Cornmeal and bacon, a good change. 21st. Nothing to write yesterday. More boxes for prisoners today. Some of the boys are getting the boxes which were sent to their comrades who are now dead. Rebels report through camp that United States transports are at Savannah to take away 3,000 prisoners, but we have been fooled too often to credit the report. 22nd. 500 more prisoners came in this morning, being a part of those captured in Plymouth, North Carolina. 28th. Nothing to write lately. 1,000 more prisoners have arrived from Plymouth the last day or two. We are getting very much crowded. A prisoner shot this morning for crossing the deadline to get a piece of bread. There is a little railing around the stockade and about 15 feet from it, and the prisoners are forbidden going inside this space to prevent any meddling with the stockade, guards being posted on top. 29th. About 1,000 new prisoners came in today. They were horrified to see the condition of things. I got a bag from one of the guards today while out after wood. I gave him a testament which one of the new prisoners had given me for it. I am going to make a shirt of it. Some of the prisoners made their escape last night through a small tunnel under the stockade. 30th. They say we are going to get cooked rations soon. I hope we do, as wood and cooking utensils are scarce. We cook cakes on boards and then lay them in the sun until the water dries out of them. End of section 6. Section 7 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 7. May 1st. Sunday rations. Cornmeal, rice, and molasses. Fights all the time, day and night. 2nd. Pint of cooked rice and a gill of molasses for the next 24 hours. Will have my shirt finished today. 4th. 6 men shot within the last week. A Yankee made believe he was dead last night and allowed himself to be carried out to the dead house on a stretcher and was laid alongside the dead. I hope the fellow will get inside our lines, but very few escape the bloodhounds. 7th. Rained hard last night, and it is still raining. Our drinking water is thick with mud and filth. I sometimes think everything is coming on us to hurry us off. Well, probably the sooner out of such misery the better, but I will keep up as long as there is a spark of life left in me. A great many get discouraged and die when they could prolong their lives with a little courage. But it is only a matter of time, as 6 months is considered a prisoner's life in a Confederate prison, although it has been 8 months since I was captured. I am a mere skeleton. 8th. Received a pound of bread today, the first we have had since we came here, 3 ounces of beef, and a bucketful of rice to be divided among 90 men. How we wretches enjoyed it! The bread was made of yellow meal and somewhat resembled fruit cake, the flies taking the place of the raisins. Nearly all the old prisoners now have scurvy, the gums turning black and swelling beyond the teeth and pouching out the cheek. The teeth become loose and drop out. The mouth becomes cancerous and the patient lingers and dies. In others, the limbs turn black and swell to the greatest capacity of the skin. Black, watery sores open, gangrene sets in, and death shortly follows. The whole prison was a hell of torture and insanity. You could hear praying and groaning mingled with the laugh of the lunatic and cursing. The sun is growing hotter and the raiders bolder. The guards are more numerous, the stocks more terrible, and the chain gangs are full of victims. The ground swarms with all kinds of vermin, and millions upon millions of mosquitoes come from the surrounding swamps to feast on our emaciated bodies. Their buzzing hum adds to the bedlam of the prison, and with the hooting of the owls and the mournful notes of the whippoorwills, howled a requiem, broken only by the crack of the muskets of the murderous guards, or the sounds of their voices as they cry out the hour of the night from their perches on the stockade. I have lain on the battlefield in the solemn hours of the night, surrounded with dead and dying, and listening to the piteous, agonizing cries of the wounded. But it is nothing compared to this den of misery and woe, the memory of which will be ever present to those who experienced it. Nearly 1/2 of the old prisoners are dead, and nearly all of those living are prostrated with scurvy and gangrene. There is a place outside the stockade where some of the sick are taken, but they are so poisoned by the stench of the prison that nearly all die. Unless one was there, it is hard for the mind to grasp the magnitude of this hell on earth. There are nearly 30,000 young men who had been pronounced sound and healthy and the best material in the land condemned to this hell of torture and misery. There seems to be no relief. We must rot in this living grave. The raiders are having everything their own way. It is a common thing to find dead men in the morning with throats cut or heads crushed in. The raiders got so bold that gangs of them go about in daylight and rob by the wholesale. Great talk of organizing the prisoners into regulars or prison police. Ninth, 18 prisoners brought in today from Sherman's army. They bring good news as to the movement of our troops. They say our forces captured 4,000 rebels the day they were captured. 12th, about 200 more prisoners the last day or two. Rebels getting excited about something. A cripple was shot for going inside the deadline. Taylor of Company D died today. Rations same with the exception of a pint of vinegar for each 10 men. 13th, John Moore of my company died today. About 50 prisoners today from Dalton. They say Dalton is in the hands of our army and that Sherman is marching on Atlanta. The average deaths for the last week has been about 60 per day. 14th, about 130 prisoners came in today, captured at Dalton. They bring good news concerning the movement of our troops. 15th, we can see wagons haul away the bodies from the dead house like so much dirt, as many as 20 bodies piled on one wagon. Upwards of 1,500 men have died since we came here. 16th, 1,000 old prisoners from Danville, Virginia just arrived. 17th, about 750 more prisoners, mostly from the Army of the Potomac. They were greatly surprised to see so many prisoners here. Raining hard. There are millions and millions of all kinds of vermin here, flies, bugs, maggots, and lice, some of them as large as spiders. If they once get the best of you, you are a goner. A great many of the prisoners are hopelessly crazy, starvation, disease, and vermin being the cause. 18th, rations for the last week have not taken any change. Weather getting warm. Thousands coming in all the time, more guards placed on duty. 19th, cornbread and about 3 ounces of bacon for today. Some 1,500 prisoners came in last night and this morning, mostly from the Army of the Potomac. Great many prisoners suffering from scurvy. Some of them are all doubled up and cannot stretch either limb. Some have their gums rot and teeth drop out. 20th, what a sad-looking place this is this morning. A heavy rain and thunderstorm last night, and we were almost drowned. No tents or shelter of any kind, and the rain poured down in unceasing torrents. Some of the new prisoners, who made tents of their blankets, found them of little use. Culberson, Webb, Gallagher, and myself composed the party of my company who have held together so long. Culberson's days, poor fellow, are numbered. He was taken outside to the hospital this morning. A few months ago he was a large, hearty, fine-looking fellow, but now a total wreck. It is not always the largest and the strongest that can stand it the longest. I am weary and sick in body and mind, and don't care whether I write any more or not. 21st. 50 prisoners arrived yesterday, captured in Florida. Raining hard today. The raiders killed a man last night. Prisoners dying of dropsy. When they are dead, their bodies swell up as large as barrels. There is quite a fight over a dead man's pants. When a prisoner dies, his shoes, stockings, shirt, pants, and cap are stripped from him. One prisoner will almost kill another to gain possession of them. 24th. Quite a number of visitors here today to see a real live Yankee. He is quite a curiosity, especially in this predicament. 25th. 500 more prisoners today from General Sickles' command. Getting very warm and vermin multiplying. Our water is full of maggots and filth. 26th. Raining hard again today. Mud and filth are our bedfellows. 600 more prisoners this afternoon. I am somewhat crippled myself, but manage to try and wash and keep clean. That is the principal thing. 100 have died within the last 24 hours. 27th. Rations, half a loaf of cornbread and 2 ounces of bacon. Prisoners complaining of our government allowing its soldiers to remain so long in misery and suffering. 28th. 1,100 prisoners arrived last night, chiefly from the army before Richmond. A great many deaths yesterday, but could not learn the number. The rebels are now trying to conceal the number of deaths, but before they were glad enough to tell us how many died. Evidently, they are getting alarmed. 29th. Bread today. They say they must give meal to one half and bread to the other half on alternate days. Raiders are getting worse every day. Some prisoners escaped from the guards yesterday while out after firewood. Captain Wirz started the bloodhounds after them. 30th. An order from Captain Wirz has been read that each sergeant who passes men outside the gate must sign a paper for the safe return of the men thus detached, and any violation of that order on the part of the squad will be punished by stopping their rations until the escaped have been brought back. 31st. Some of the prisoners, while out after wood, trade with the guards for onions, potatoes, beans, etc., and bring them in here and sell them for exorbitant prices. $1 for an onion and the same for a pint of black beans. June 1st. Rations very small. 500 prisoners came in this morning. One man was badly beaten by the raiders last night. He said they took a watch away from him that his mother had given him as a birthday present when he was 21, and he would almost as lieve lose his life. Second, eggs are selling at 50 cents apiece. A solid inch of soap, 50 cents. One head of cabbage, $1. A shaving and hair-cutting salon has been opened in the swamp. Third, those stores are doing quite a business, especially among the new arrivals who have plenty of money. It requires a large amount. Weather is getting warm, and what a terrible smell there is. Fourth, deaths increasing every day, almost as fast as they are coming in. God help us. No tongue or pen can describe or imagination portray how horrible is this hell on earth. Fifth, raining hard all day. Some cases of smallpox here. There will be no help for us if that disease once gets started. It made me sick when I heard that news, but I will trust in God, for He has protected me through 20 fights and skirmishes and through all the hardships and suffering of prison life for 8 months, when many of my comrades who were captured with me are gone. I believe half of the 127 of my company who were captured with me are dead. Sixth, 300 more prisoners came in this morning from Sherman's army. They are of the opinion that Atlanta will soon be in the possession of our troops. Raining today. The 2 men who escaped the other day were brought in and put in irons. One of them had the flesh torn from his legs. Seventh, raining again today. Men lying out in the rain and mud, sick and suffering. 30 deaths reported from smallpox within the last week. Eighth, got a diary from one of the new prisoners. Glad of it, for mine was almost full. He said I was doing something he could not do. Well, I commenced it, and it comes natural to me now. Besides, it occupies my mind and gives me some exercise twice a day, going from one end of the prison to the other, hunting up news. I will soon have to look out for a new pencil. This is the 4th piece, and it is very short. I could not find my cap this morning, but watched my chance among the dead and got another. It is about 4 sizes too large for me, but as I will not go to see my sweetheart for some time, it will have to do. Ninth, raining today. It has rained every day this month, adding much to the suffering of us poor creatures. Several detachments got no bread for 2 days. They don't know the reason, but I suppose they have the shorts as usual. One man was drowned in the swamp this afternoon. New potatoes sell at $1 per dozen. I couldn't buy any even if they were a cent a bushel. 10th, raining as usual. 1,140 prisoners came in this morning from the Army of the Potomac. They bring no news of any kind. 12th, raining all day yesterday and last night. 109 have died in the last 24 hours. 13th, raining all the time. Men dying constantly from the effects of the rain and exposure, having no shelter of any kind. 14th, about 1,000 prisoners came in today from the Mississippi, stripped of blankets, coats, shoes, money, watches, rings, and in fact, everything was taken from them. They said after their capture they were treated in a most barbarous manner. But evil for good they returned, insulted and abused us. Our prayers, our tears, they mocked and spurned, and worse than brutes they used us. It was reported that General Sherman sent a large force of cavalry to release us. When Wirz heard of them coming, he issued an order to the commander of the artillery to be ready, and when the Yankee cavalry got within 7 miles of the pen, to open fire on the prisoners with grape and canister and to continue firing as long as a prisoner lived. But our cavalry was defeated and a part of them captured and turned into the pen with us. 15th. Raining again this morning, but the sky promises a fine afternoon. It is not worthwhile to state the kind and quality of rations we have been getting, as there has been no change. 16th. A fine morning, but everything is wet and moldy in consequence of so much rain, it having rained every day this month. The raiders attacked a new prisoner this morning and beat him unmercifully. They are a hard-looking set of cusses. They have a leader named Collins, and are called Mosby and his gang after the notorious Mosby. A great deal of trading going on, the peddlers becoming a great nuisance. Wood is in great demand, a handful is worth 50 cents. Hardly anything can be obtained for less than half a dollar. 17th. A great many deaths in camp daily. It is clear and warm this morning, and I think I will take a stroll through the camp this afternoon, as I have not been around much lately, it having been so wet. 18th. Some of the raiders at work again last night. The prisoners are talking of organizing a police force for protection. 390 more prisoners arrived this morning, having been captured in front of Richmond. Among them were D.A. Callahan, sergeant major of my regiment. He did not know me, I had changed so. I don't wonder, as my weight has dropped from 150 to about 100 pounds. 19th. One of the raiders arrested by the police this morning for stealing from one of the prisoners. He was sent out to the rebel guardhouse, as Wirz had given the police authority to send them there. I hope this will lessen the crimes committed here. Since Satan loves the wicked race, to him will quickly send them. In hell they'll rule the want of grace, then may the devil mend them. It is reported that the body of a man was found buried under a tent occupied by the raiders. Several fights between the regulars and the raiders. Dugouts and huts were torn down, sticks and poles being used by both as weapons. The regulars were strong in numbers, while the raiders were strong in flesh. The battle lasted all day. The raiders were overpowered, and over 100 of them were arrested and taken outside the stockade and put in the rebel guardhouse for safekeeping. 20th. A great many sick taken out to the hospital every day. 21st. Man was shot at the deadline last night by one of the guards. Some of the detachments have not had any firewood for several days and cannot cook their raw rations. Another raider arrested today and sent to the guardhouse. Report says that all the leaders are going to be arrested and tried for murder. There is evidence against them that they have killed several of their fellow prisoners. 22nd. The rice we receive is hardly fit to eat because of so much handling and measuring. I think we make a piteous spectacle standing in squads of 30 around a half bucketful of rice in the midst of a drenching storm, thunder rolling over our heads, waiting for our rations of rice, which resembles slop. The men that have old tin cups are considered lucky, while others receive theirs on pieces of boards and in bags made out of pant legs and caps. Now imagine, if you can, the men eating that rice with a relish with their dirty black fingers. So much for starvation in the sunny South. 23rd. The new addition to the stockade will be finished in a few days, and that will give us more room. Number of deaths increasing in an alarming manner. Some fall dead while walking. 24th. 4 more of the raiders arrested yesterday and sent to the guardhouse, where they put a ball and chain on them. 25th. 4 more of the raiders arrested this morning, including Collins, the leader of the gang. It is reported they are going to be tried and, if found guilty, to be hanged. 26th. Captain Wirz came into camp yesterday and ordered the chief of police to have all the leaders of the raiders arrested and sent to the guardhouse. 27th. Don't feel very well today. I am all broken up with rheumatism caused by rain and exposure, having only one old torn blanket for the 4 of us. 28th. The camp today presented one of the wildest scenes I have ever witnessed. The balance of the prison thieves were arrested, but not until after a general fight had taken place, in which clubs and knives had been freely used. 4 or 5 men were killed, but the raiders were overpowered and taken to the guardhouse. 29th. The new addition to the stockade was opened to the prisoners this morning. They were scarcely in and the guards taken off when the prisoners commenced tearing down the logs for firewood. I never saw such a scramble. 30th. No rations today. The rebels say it is to punish us for destroying the stockade. End of section 7. Section 8 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 8. July 1st, 1864. The prison sergeants were ordered to write out new company rolls this morning, there being so many deaths and sick in the hospital that there are very few of the old prisoners left. This is regarded as a good sign for parole or exchange. The weather is very hot. Several shots fired at the prisoners last night. 1 man shot in the knee. Over 100 deaths reported yesterday. I am almost crippled with rheumatism. There are many cases of insanity. The poor fellows, not knowing what they do, wander inside the deadline and are shot. Second, the raiders were tried and convicted yesterday. The 6 leaders were found guilty of murder in the 1st degree by the jury and sentenced to be hanged. Third, we cannot live long on the quantity of rations we have been getting. Thinking of our friends at home who are preparing to celebrate the nation's birthday of freedom tomorrow, they do not imagine the condition of us poor sufferers in this accursed place. Fourth, no rations of any kind today. This is the way the rebels intends us to celebrate the 4th. 1,000 deaths would be preferable to this intense suffering. I have been in 20 engagements and skirmishes and would rather be in twice as many again than endure the tortures of this hell. Fifth, Captain Wirz sent for all the sergeants of squads and told them he was informed of an organization in camp numbering 6,000 men who were resolved in breaking out of prison and capture the guards, muskets, and artillery. He admonished us to beware, for he was well prepared, night or day, and would not be caught sleeping. He read an order to us received from Richmond, instructing him to open fire when any demonstration was made. He said he would do so with grape and canister and would not stop while a man was left kicking, inside or out. He has 2 white flags up, one on each hill inside of the stockade, warning us not to congregate in crowds outside of those flags or he will open fire on us. Sixth, rations. 1 pint of meal and 2 or 3 spoonfuls of beans and 2 ounces of bacon. Prisoners almost crazy with hunger. There is a gang of men in here this morning selecting a place to build a scaffold upon which to hang the 6 raiders. I think they are only doing this to frighten the balance of them. Seventh, it is reported this morning that 125 have died in the last 24 hours. It is comparatively quiet here now since the raiders have been arrested, and we have a good strong police force of about 400 men who are divided into squads with a captain in command of each. 2/3 of the prisoners cannot stand or walk, but lie around in all positions. Ninth, men came in to put up the scaffold today, and to their great astonishment there was no lumber. The prisoners carried it off during the night for firewood, and this morning not a stick could be seen. When the news reached Captain Wirz, he was as mad as a hornet, and drove all through the camp with 20 of his guards, but could not find any of the lumber. He went out cursing the thieving Yankees. He carried 4 revolvers. 10th, 152 prisoners have died within the last 24 hours. They say almost as many die in the hospital as here. It is said the raiders will be hanged tomorrow, and that is the chief topic of conversation. It is awful hot here now. The sun almost melts us. 11th, about 20 men came in this morning to put up the scaffold. Rations served at 9 this morning. The rebels say the raiders are to be executed this afternoon as soon as the scaffold is finished. It had become known about that we were going to hang some of our own men. When the appointed time arrived, a large crowd of citizens, men, women, and children, gathered on the high ground between the principal forts and the prison to witness the hanging. Captain Wirz was alarmed and excited, fearing we had some Yankee trick on hand to get up a commotion and all break out and capture the place. He had the whole rebel force under arms and the cannon of all the forts loaded with grape and canister and trained on the prison. Everything was ready to fire at the signal, but this act created an exciting scene which Captain Wirz thought was the expected break. He ran to the signal battery yelling, "Fire! Fire! Shoot! Shoot!" The captain of the battery, being a man of cool judgment, did not obey Wirz. The citizens and guards who were in the way of the cannon stampeded into a regular panic, injuring many of the citizens. Had the captain of the battery obeyed Wirz, there would be 24 cannon loaded with grape and canister opened upon that human mass in the prison. The 35,000 lives in the prison hung on the firing cord of that signal gun. Later, 5 p.m. 6 raiders were hanged this afternoon. It was an awful sight. The judge, jury, etc. were all prisoners, no rebels participating at all. At about 4:30, Captain Wirz rode into camp at the head of the guards who had the condemned men in charge to the scaffold, and delivered the sentenced men to our police, who stood around with clubs. One of the condemned men escaped through the crowd to the swamp, but was soon brought back. He knows that he has gone astray, and sees the danger of his way, and to the right would turn again, if a pardon he would gain. Not for the crime he would repent, but much he fears the punishment. The spoils he got among the throng he had hoped would serve him long. The 6 men were hanged together. After hanging about 20 minutes, they were taken down and carried out to the dead house. I was one of the 6 who carried Mosby, the leader, out, and was glad to breathe fresh air for a few minutes. July 12th, 1864. All the talk in camp is about the hanging of the raiders. The scaffold upon which they were hanged was all carried away in an hour by the boys. I have a piece of it which I want to take home if I ever get out alive. The raiders were buried this morning. The number of deaths in camp reached its highest mark yesterday, 185 having died. I don't wonder, as everything is composed of dirt and filth. The stench from the swamp is sickening, and the water full of maggots and all kinds of vermin, which we must use or die of thirst. There is a spring inside the dead line, but cannot get to it without running the risk of being shot. 13th. We are suffering very much from heat, as we have no shelter of any kind to protect us from the scorching sun. We are almost all barefooted and hatless. Have not heard how many died yesterday, but think from the heat there must have been a great many. The wagons have been busy all day hauling away the dead. They use a regular hay wagon, and when they throw in one body upon the rest, you can see it shake the whole load. Oh, what a horrible sight. 14th. One of the guards shot at a man this morning, but missed him and struck a prisoner who was sitting smoking his pipe, hitting him in the upper part of the jaw, passing out the opposite side, cutting his tongue in two. 10 detachments get 1 load of wood per day for 2,500 men. Oh, only God in heaven knows how we are treated. We suffer much, we suffer long, beneath their vile oppression. Nor could they say we did them wrong. Theirs was the first aggression. 15th. Rations: 1 pint of cornmeal and about 20 beans and 3 or 4 ounces of bacon, all raw and no way to cook them. 16th. The rebels are engaged in throwing up breastworks and making rifle pits all around the stockade. We can see them at work. They are evidently afraid of Sherman's raid or Kilpatrick. They would as soon see the devil as the latter general. Deaths average about 120 per day, and the rebels say it will take us all away in August, as that is the hottest month in the year in Georgia. 17th. It is terribly hot here. Another prisoner was shot by the guards this morning. He was taken sick while near the deadline and was vomiting, and had hold of the railing to support himself when the guard, who was only 20 feet from him, shot him, the ball passing clear through his breast. He belonged to a New York regiment. They say when a guard shoots a prisoner he gets 30 days furlough. I guess that accounts for the shooting of so many prisoners. We are truly in a wretched condition, and the gigantic, the proud, the boasted republic of the world, America, is allowing its citizens, its soldiers, its volunteers to remain here to starve, to rot, and to die. 18th. Captain Wirz drove through the prison today. The men hooted at him, but he paid no attention to them. 19th. Upwards of 7,000 prisoners have died in the stockade since I came here, not including the number who have died in the hospital. 20th. 130 prisoners died yesterday. It is so hot we are almost roasted. There were 127 of my regiment captured the day I was, and of that number 81 have since died, and the rest are more dead than alive. Exposure and long confinement is doing its work among us. 21st. The rebels have erected large forts and breastworks around the camp to keep us from making a break to get out. There are 37,000 men crowded into a space of 36 acres. There are in this place active young and middle-aged men from loving northern homes, clinging to the last spark of life, wallowing in their own filth, many of them reduced to idiocy, and some cannot speak, the ground under them giving off the most suffocating stench to mingle with that of bodies decaying in the hot sun. Sometimes we would go and carry them water, of which they would drink, but the stench would drive us away before we could serve all. They would stretch out their wasted hands and implore us by word and signs to give them water, but the glassy stare of their eyes telling us they would soon be out of misery, we leave them to die. We have all the sick comrades we can care for, and we must not neglect them for those we cannot save with the means at hand. The churches of all denominations except one solitary Catholic priest, Father Hamilton, ignored us as completely as they would dumb beasts. Father Hamilton was the only religious minister that I ever knew to come into this place, and I certainly believe he is a true Christian. He would minister the Catholic and Protestants alike. Some of the rebel doctors were kind-hearted and shed tears over our distress, but they were powerless to give relief under the management of Jeff Davis and his assistants, Winder and Wirz. This starving strain on the weakened constitutions of the prisoners carried them off by the hundreds day after day. Wirz was a low, ill-born wretch of the most brutal type. He seemed to delight in and took pride in showing the guards how he could knock down and kick the poor, helpless, imbecile prisoners, who were so idiotic that they could not understand him and would stand and stare vacantly at him when he spoke to them. He practiced the most brutal and barbarous cruelties on this class of helpless prisoners. A large number of those who had been in prison over a year were now insane. They seemed to lose all power of speech and memory. They could not tell their own names, and did not know whether they had been in prison 1 day or 1 year. If spoken to, their only answer would be a far-away look, as if they were trying to recall something beyond the reach of their memory. They wandered aimlessly about and kept their comrades constantly watching to keep them from the deadline. Many were murdered at the deadline. The gangrene is terrible. Prisoners are rotting and falling to pieces from its effect. God save us, poor fellows. 22nd. Nothing of any importance to state today. It is comparatively quiet since the raiders were hanged and the police were organized. Jeremiah O. Mahany of my company is chief of police. A great many men get sunstruck, and men who lie out in the sun sick are tortured to death by flies and vermin. 23rd. Excitement in camp over the rumor of an exchange of prisoners. I will not believe it until I am inside our lines. We have been fooled so often. 24th. There are about 2,000 sick in the hospital, just outside the stockade. 5 or 6 legs and arms are amputated every day, which gives the physicians great practice. 25th. No change in our bill of fare. End of section 8. Section 9 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 9. August 2nd, 1864. Have been sick nearly a week. Am totally used up with rheumatism, but feel a little better this morning. 9 men went to our lines today with a proposal to our government for the exchange of prisoners. If the exchange does not soon take place, there will be none left to tell the tale of the suffering and horrible treatment in the slaughter pen of Andersonville. One of the guards was accidentally shot outside the gate this afternoon and killed. Third, I am better today, but it makes me tired and stiff to walk much. About 150 have died in the last 24 hours. I forgot to mention that Culberson of my company died in the hospital. I did not learn when the poor fellow died. That leaves only Webb, Gallagher, and myself out of my company who are alive. Fourth, great excitement here this morning owing to some of the prisoners tunneling out under the stockade last night. It appears they had been working at it for over 2 weeks. Wurs came in and examined the tunnel this morning. He said the bloodhounds would soon catch them. Fifth, Wurs came in this morning with 20 guards. He said he heard there were 2 or 3 more tunnels, but after a diligent search he could not find any signs of them. The Yankees will fool him again, as he passed over 2 that I know of. Sixth, it is terribly hot. Wurs was in again this morning with his bodyguard. He is afraid to come in alone, as there are many who will kill him upon the first opportunity. The stern arm of vengeance against them will raise, and around them the flames of our bitterness blaze. For we swore they should pay for the deeds they have done, and we ne'er will relent, not a tyrant will spare, but hang them on gibbets to rot in the air, till those that survive them confess that they feel that our armies resistless and our hearts are of steel. I learned this morning that one of my regiment got away with those who tunneled out. I witnessed an amputation this afternoon. A prisoner got a sore on his foot, and it was decided to amputate it. He did not want to go to the hospital, as his brother is here to take care of him, and that accounts for the amputation being performed in the stockade. We point with pride to the thousands of graves and say, these comrades chose the most cruel death rather than dishonor their country in any way by assisting the enemy to destroy it by taking the oath of allegiance, which they often tried to induce us to do. Under the most trying circumstances, naked and starving, and racked with pain and disease, with certain torture and death staring us in the face, did we refuse to oft-repeated offers of relief by enlisting in the rebel army or working in their shops. Those young men gave up all their bright hopes and prospects of loving homes and pursuits of happiness, and submitted to cruel torture and death, believing that their sacrifices and deeds of heroism would ever be kept fresh in the memory of those who would enjoy the freedom for which this price was paid. There are many ungrateful people who would, no doubt, repress the recital of these comrades' sufferings, claiming it would only breed sectional hatred, and that these stories are written and told in a spirit of animosity. To this I will say, I know that the truths written and told of these prison hells are very unwelcome to this class of people. But remember, we do not hold the masses of the people or the soldiers of the South responsible for the cruel murder of our fellow prisoners. For these misguided people we hold the greatest respect, except for those who admire and applaud those bad, bold men who wantonly and premeditately did murder their helpless captives. Again, we are told that Jefferson Davis and his officers did not have the provisions to feed their captives. This excuse was removed by our government offering to furnish food, clothing, and medicines, which was refused. We know that they had no excuse for denying us pure air, water, room, and means of shelter. We begged and pleaded with tears in our eyes that we be permitted to save our lives by ditching and draining the swamps in our prison pen and getting the material from the adjoining pine forest to shelter us from sun and rain. To those that say Jefferson Davis and his cabinet did not murder their captives, we ask them to discard all testimony of Union soldiers and take the evidence of Southern people and the Confederate records. Examine the report of the Confederate surgeons appointed to inspect the prisons, and you will see where they hastened back to Davis and reported to him the destruction of life there. See where they recommended the removal of the inhumane keepers and the appointment of humane keepers in their stead. You will see that Davis did nothing of the kind, but he did promote John H. Winder to the command of all the prisoners in the South, with full power to torture and murder as he pleased. And when you have examined all this calmly, if you have one spark of humanity in you, you will never express your admiration for that perjured murderer and his traitorous advisers. All this does not affect us. We have seen nothing but misery for over a year and a half. I do not believe that 10 out of every 100 will ever reach the friendly shelter of the Stars and Stripes. Colonel C.T. Chandler of the Confederate Army was sent by Jefferson Davis to inspect Andersonville Prison. He performed his duties carefully, and in his report to Davis he said, "I called the attention of Captain Wirz and General Winder to the frightful mortality that must certainly follow the crowded and filthy condition of the prison, and pointed out to them how this could easily be remedied, and recommended a change in diet from cornmeal to one of vegetables, of which there were plenty in the surrounding country. To all of which Winder indifferently replied, 'The present arrangement is good enough, as it is having the desired effect, and if let alone will soon thin the prisoners out so there will be plenty of room.'" Colonel Chandler hastened to Richmond, made his report, and recommended change of the officers in charge of the prison. The result was that Jefferson Davis promoted John H. Winder to the general in command of all the prisons in the Confederacy. Who will say, with any pretense of telling the truth, that Jeff Davis is not a murderer? Where is there a man in existence who has such a pile of murders and brutality untold at his door? That thousands of murders committed on helpless captives in the Confederacy were done with his full knowledge and permission, there is not a shadow of doubt, and we need use only the Confederate evidence and records to prove it, and say nothing of the 15,000 graves at Andersonville, that harvest of death reaped from 36 acres of ground in 1 year and a half, and upwards of 4,000 of that number in one single month. Time was moving slowly, and we were rapidly sinking into depravity. We had told all the stories we knew and heard, and all our neighbors knew. Every scrap of paper that had any reading on it was worn out. Several fights took place daily among the prisoners. Men in our condition were sure to be peevish and irritable, and the best of friends would quarrel about a trifling matter. The lightweight would get on his feet, stagger around, and then balance in front of his opponent. Stinging words would pass, and then the bony fist launch feebly out. It misses the mark, and the owner following goes to the ground. The other fellow is trying to ward off the blow, loses his balance, and falls. This ends the fight, as they are too much exhausted to renew it. 7th. Nothing new today. There is a stench of things rotting in the heat. 8th. The hounds tracked the men who got out, and one fellow was torn so badly that he cannot live. The number of deaths is running up. About 200 die each day. I will try and keep up my courage and trust in God to get me out of this place. 11th. Nothing of interest in the last day or so. Thomas Kelly of Company H died this morning. The sun is a regular furnace. An order was read to us this morning stating that a general exchange of prisoners was to take place. 12th. 10 months a prisoner today, and what a change. 13th. It still keeps hot, and deaths are increasing in an alarming manner. 10 detachments, or about 1,000 prisoners, are to leave here today for the point of exchange, so the rebels say. 14th. About 2,500 left today. 15th. Between 3,000 and 4,000 prisoners sent off today. 16th. A prisoner had his leg amputated today at the thigh. This is the 3rd time for him. First at the foot, then at the knee, and now halfway up his thigh. He sat and held his own leg while they sawed it off. 17th. No prisoners left here yesterday or today. Alfred Friend, Company F, 12th, New York City, has just informed me that he is the only man alive out of 53 of his regiment. 24th. Had to give up writing at last, as I am completely used up with rheumatism. 28th. Guess my time has come. Was taken to the hospital this morning and put in a tent with 10 more sick. September 16th, 1864. Have been in here over 2 weeks. The doctor says I will pull through all right. I can't hear any news to put in my diary. 18th. The doctor wanted to know this afternoon if I got my medicine. I told him that what I wanted was something to eat instead of medicine. 24th. The doctor told me that upwards of 12,000 prisoners have died since we came here. 28th. 1 month in the hospital today, but do not seem to improve. Our rations are a little better here than in the pen. 30th. 6 men died in this tent since I came here. They say they are dying very fast. End of section 9. Section 10 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 10. October 6, 1864. Father Hamilton, a Catholic priest, paid a visit to our tent today. He is a very fine old gentleman and seemed to take considerable interest in me. He said he would call again tomorrow. 7th. Father Hamilton called on me again this morning. He says that he is going to attend to the sick at this place, the most of whom are Catholics. He was surprised when I told him I came from the old sod and could read Latin. He thought I was too young to be in the army. 8th. A little better this morning. Father Hamilton and 2 sisters of charity called on me today and gave me something nice to eat. 9th. I turned on my bed of straw this morning and found that the man next to me was dead. This makes 7 out of 11. 10th. I got the dead man's rations this morning and feel considerably better. There is great moaning here, day and night, occasioned by so much suffering. It would make you sick to see some of the men swollen as large as a barrel with the dropsy, and doubled up with rheumatism and scurvy, and a great number with arms and legs cut off. I got 7 new tent mates today. 11th. Father Hamilton called today and brought me an undershirt. He said I looked better. 12th. 1 year a prisoner today. 13th. The surgeons have their hands full taking off arms and legs. 14th. Father Hamilton told me he sold his property in Savannah and bought 1,600 barrels of flour for the sick. That accounts for our getting wheat bread. 15th. Another tent mate died this morning. I don't seem to improve much. It is quite cool in the mornings now. 17th. My diary is almost full. Only a few leaves are now left. Walter Webb of my company was brought out here today. The poor fellow is almost dead. 19th. Another tent mate died this morning. I got hold of a new piece of pencil this morning. Mine was hardly an inch long. Webb tells me that 100 of our regiment are dead. Father Hamilton brought me some cold roast beef this morning, and oh, how good it was. 20th. Webb called to see me this morning, but had to crawl on his hands and knees, as the cords of his legs are so drawn up that he cannot stretch them out. 22nd. Nothing to say except that the groans of the sick and dying are terrible. They cry in their dying agony for a mother, a wife, child, or friend to come to them. Oh, Lord of heaven, it is awful, awful. It would bring tears from a stone to hear the heart-rending cries for a distant friend. Someone will have a great deal to answer for. When our country called for men, we came from forge and shop and mill, from workshops, farms, and factories, our broken ranks to fill. We left our quiet northern homes that once we loved so well, to vanquish all the Union's foes, or fall where others fell. Now in prison drear we languish, and it is our constant cry, O ye who yet can save us, will you leave us here to die? The voice of slander tells you that our hearts are weak with fear, that all or nearly all of us were captured in the rear. But the scars upon our bodies from musket ball and shell, the missing legs and shattered arms, a truer tale will tell. We tried to do our duty in sight of God on high. O ye who yet can save us, will you leave us here to die? There are hearts with hopes still beating in our pleasant northern homes, awaiting, watching footsteps that may never come. In southern prisons pining, meager, tattered, pale, and gaunt, growing weaker, weaker daily, from pinching, cold, and want. Those brothers, sons, and husbands, poor and helpless captive lie. O ye who yet can save us, will you leave us here to die? From out our prison gate there is a graveyard close at hand, where lies 13,000 Union men beneath the Georgia sand. Scores and scores are laid beside them as day succeeds to day, and thus it will ever be till they all shall pass away. And the last can say when dying, with upturned and glaring eye, both love and faith are dead at home, they have left us here to die. 23rd. I forgot to mention that there are 15 wards in this hospital, 12 tents in each ward, and each tent will contain 12 men. The floor of each tent is covered with straw, without any quilts or blankets. I am in the 11th ward, tent number 4. Webb is in the 13th ward, tent number 9. The doctor visits us each day. He does not come in, but stands at the door and asks each patient how he is, and then tells the hospital steward, who accompanies him, to give him such and such a medicine, all by the numbers. If they would stay away and give us more grub, we would get well sooner. 25th. Have not seen Wurs since I came in here. If some of the prisoners come across him after the war is over, he won't live long. 26th. Father Hamilton called on me this morning and brought me a nice slice of bread and butter. He says he will try and bring me a little milk. 28th. Feeling considerably better. 4 died in this ward last night, and 1 fellow died in my tent this afternoon. His name was Darris March. He gave me a picture in case I get home to send to Emmeline Wooding, Jackson, Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania. 29th. Walter Webb called to see me this morning. November 8, 1864. Election Day in the North for President of the United States. Wurs has requested that we have a mock election and each prisoner is to vote, whether of age or not, and says that whatever will be the majority in the hospital will be a fair test as to the result in the North. We all like McClellan, but despite the rebels, most of us will vote for Lincoln. So this afternoon, each man was given 2 slips of paper with the names of McClellan on one and Lincoln on the other. 2 rebel sergeants visited each tent with a basket and gathered the vote, and at 5 o'clock they announced the result, which stood McClellan 531 and Lincoln 1,239. Wurs is terribly angry and says it will be link in and link out for us for some time to come. 12th. Had another visit from the priest today. He brought me a bottle of milk. It is the first milk I have tasted for 13 months. 13th. All the Irish who could walk were called to the gate this afternoon by a Colonel McNeil of the 10th Tennessee Rebel Regiment to see if any of them would take the oath to join the rebel service. Not an Irishman enlisted, but 2 Yankees did, one from Connecticut and the other from a New York regiment. So, you see, the Irish are the most loyal. 14th. Webb called on me today. We had a talk over the excitement caused by the appeal to the Irish. He says McNeil is no true Irishman, or he would not try to degrade Ireland and her people by making such a proposition. It is quite cool now, and we have hardly any clothing. 29th. Had another severe attack of rheumatism and feel badly. While one of the doctors was in yesterday, his dog strayed into one of the tents, and one of the prisoners threw an old blanket over him and killed him. He ate part of it and said it was elegant. He buried the entrails, but one of the other poor fellows dug them up, cooked, and ate them. December 4th, 1864. I asked Dr. Pollitt, who attends this ward, if he would examine the records out in the surgeon's headquarters, Let me know how many of my regiment have died at Andersonville since I came here. 7th. Dr. Pollitt kindly gave me the list I asked for. It gives me the names of the men in my regiment, company, and date of death and number of grave. I am thankful for it. My diary is just about full. 10th. I feel no better. My diary is full. It is too bad, but cannot get any more. Goodbye, all. I did not think it would hold out so long when I commenced. Yours sufferingly, Michael Dougherty, Company B, 13th Pennsylvania Volunteer Cavalry, Confederate State Military Prison Hospital. End of section 10. Section 11 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 11. Later Events. From the time of the last record in my diary in December 1864 up to April 1865, I remained in the hospital and was not able to keep any daily record, even if I had the facilities to do so, which I had not. During this time, as during the previous months, there were constant rumors of exchange and parole, but we heard the same so often that I would not believe it until I found myself homeward bound. We did know, however, that they were sending a great many prisoners north from Andersonville and presumed it was for exchange or parole, although we did not know definitely. And even when my own turn came to leave, I did not know what my destination was until after I had left Andersonville. The sick in the hospital were the last prisoners to be sent away. April 12, 1865. Leave Andersonville, Georgia today. Start from here by way of Selma, Alabama, thence to Jackson, Mississippi, stopping at the Big Black River for a week to gain strength before we start north. April 20th. Just heard of the assassination of President Lincoln. Our boys are furious over the sad news, saying it is a rebel plot. April 22nd. Near Vicksburg, Mississippi. There are about 4,000 of us prisoners at this place. We got orders to be ready to march into Vicksburg tomorrow, as there are 2 boats ready to take us up the Mississippi to St. Louis, Missouri. April 23rd, 1865. Vicksburg, Mississippi. Went aboard the boat called the Sultana to be taken to St. Louis, Missouri. There are about 2,200 of us, mostly old prisoners from Andersonville, Georgia. On the trip up the Mississippi, the Sultana met with a terrible disaster, causing complete destruction of the boat, and hundreds of men who had passed safely through many bloody battles and the horrible suffering of Southern prison life perished within but a few days' journey of home and friends. The story of the accident can best be told by the following account taken from a St. Louis newspaper, dated May 1st, 1865. The boat packed. The boat was packed to its utmost capacity, the men occupying every available space possible on decks, in the hold, and at other points of vantage. The boat traveled from 8 to 10 miles per hour, the river being out of its banks about 20 feet and a swift current prevailing. The boat reached Memphis on the morning of April 26th, where a quantity of sugar, which had served as ballast, was unloaded. The boat was towed across the river, and after dark it started on its trip up the river. The terrible explosion which occasioned the destruction of the vessel with its thousands of human freight occurred about 4 o'clock in the morning on April 27th at Hen and Chickens Islands. One of the 4 boilers burst, and the flying pieces ascended and almost cut the vessel in twain. The fire immediately spread, and the cabins burned like tinder, and it was but a short time until the entire craft was enveloped in flames and burned to the water's edge. Hundreds were forced to leap into the water and were drowned in squads, while others who could swim or had secured pieces of driftwood were unable to rescue themselves on account of being grabbed by others and consequently perished. Night of Terror. One thing favorable for the occupants of the boat was that a lively gale was blowing. Hence, the bow of the boat having no cabin, it faced the wind until the cabin from the stern was burned. The boat gradually swung around, the unburned part acting as a sail, while that below acted as a rudder, and finally all were driven into the water. The very dark night, heavy rain, and the extreme high stage of the river were decidedly to the disadvantage of even those who secured means of escape. From survivors it is learned that hundreds swam for miles, in the hope of reaching some point of safety, and finally sank from exhaustion. Others were caught on protruding limbs of trees, where they remained until the rescue boats appeared the day following. Still others clung to rafts made of fragments from the boat. 7 boats came up the river the next day and picked up all the unfortunates who could be found. Some were taken to Memphis, others to St. Louis and Cairo, and all were placed in hospitals, where they remained until able to be released. A significant fact was that out of only 15 women on board, none was saved. They were members of the Christian Commission, something akin to the present Red Cross movement. A heroic woman. One of these women, with more than ordinary courage, when the flames had driven the men from the boat, seeing them fighting like demons in the water and destroying each other in their mad endeavors to save their lives, urged them to be calm, and finally succeeded in quieting them down, and they were saved on pieces of timber that were available. This good woman did not heed the flames that were lapping about her, and, when urged by the men to jump into the water and save herself on floating timbers, she refused, saying, "I might lose my presence of mind and be the means of the death of some of you." And so, rather than run the risk of becoming the cause of the death of a single person, she folded her arms deliberately and burned, a voluntary martyr to the men she had so lately calmed. As the dawn of the new day came, the wreckage began to move down the stream, and one survivor, who had saved himself by clinging to the top of a tree, gives this description of the last that was seen of the boat's remains. The hull of the Sultana came floating down the river, with a dozen or more of the boys still clinging to the burning wreck. A mound of earth which had not been overflowed had formed a sort of island, and several of the men on the wreck had lodged on it. As they discovered the men on the hull of the boat, a raft of logs was made and they were rescued. Before they landed the last man, the hull of the Sultana went down, its hot iron sending the hissing water and steam to an enormous height. Among the Christian Commission above referred to were 2 sisters of charity who accompanied us all the way from Vicksburg, Mississippi, and one of them was the heroic woman mentioned. May 3rd, 1865. I am one of the lucky ones who escaped the sad disaster. I was well taken care of when I arrived here about a week ago. We are going to start to our northern homes tomorrow to Annapolis, Maryland. May 6th. After 3 days' ride, we arrived at Annapolis, Maryland, tired and worn out. We'll stay here for a couple of days and will then start for Philadelphia to be mustered out of the service. May 9th. Arrived at Philadelphia this noon. They say that we are going to be sent to a place called Spring Mills until we are discharged. June 27th, 1865. Discharged at Spring Mills today. Arrived at Bristol, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, this afternoon, to the great joy of my mother and sisters, and not forgetting myself. I am more dead than alive after all my trials and suffering and hardships, with shattered constitution and crippled with rheumatism and scurvy from my long confinement in Southern prisons. When I left for the Army, I weighed 150 pounds. Now I really believe I do not weigh 100. I placed myself under the care of Dr. E. J. Groom, and in less than 1 year he had me in a fair condition and was able to go to work. I cannot stand much yet, for the disease contracted in those prisons is in my system, and will be, I suppose, as long as I live. I suffered for 23 months and 17 days in Southern prisons. I have carried you hastily through these scenes, but you have not seen all, as it is beyond the power of pen or brush to portray or tongue to tell of those scenes, which will haunt me to my grave. The reality calls for a better light and a nearer view than your clouded, distant gaze will ever get. Believe me, I have told you the truth as to what we have suffered in Confederate prisons, which you never can and which I pray God your children never may. As you would have your own woes pitied and your own cries for mercy heard, I beg of you to read the accounts written by the prison survivors. For while they seem so horrible and you mentally suffer, you will be paid 1,000-fold in being the better able to appreciate the many blessings you now enjoy, and to encourage the efforts of a poor survivor to teach the youth of our republic to show an undivided patriotism for one country and one flag. Michael Dougherty, late Company B and Company M, 13th Pennsylvania Volunteer Cavalry. End of section 11. Section 12 of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Read by Barry Eads. Section 12. Medals of Honor. I have been presented with a handsome gold medal by the colonel of my regiment, afterwards Brigadier General M. Kerwin, for bravery in carrying dispatches from General Mulroy's headquarters at the Battle of Winchester, June 16th to 19th, 1863, in the 3 days' fight. I have also been granted a Medal of Honor in accordance with an act of Congress which entitles me to membership in the Medal of Honor Legion, and the publication issued by the War Department relative to those receiving Medals of Honor gives the following data. Name, rank at date of action, and organization. Michael Dougherty, Private, Company B, 13th Pennsylvania Cavalry. Date of issue, January 23, 1897. Action. Place, Jefferson, Virginia. Date, October 12, 1863. Ground of award. At the head of a detachment of his company, dashed across an open field, exposed to a deadly fire from the enemy, and succeeded in dislodging them from an unoccupied house, which he and his comrades defended for several hours against repeated attacks, thus preventing the enemy from flanking the Union forces. The following is a copy of the communication I received from the War Department advising me of the award of this medal. Subject: Medal of Honor. Record and Pension Office, War Department, Washington City, January 23, 1897. Mr. Michael Dougherty, late Private, Company B, 13th Pennsylvania Cavalry, Bristol, Pennsylvania. Sir, I have the honor to inform you that by direction of the President and in accordance with the Act of Congress approved March 3, 1863, providing for the presentation of medals of honor to such officers, non-commissioned officers, and privates who have most distinguished themselves in action, the Assistant Secretary of War has awarded you a Medal of Honor for most distinguished gallantry in action at Jefferson, Virginia, October 12, 1863. In making the award, the Assistant Secretary used the following language. This soldier, at the head of a detachment of his company, dashed across an open field exposed to a deadly fire from the enemy, and succeeded in dislodging them from an unoccupied house, which he and his comrades defended for several hours against repeated attacks, thus preventing the enemy from flanking the position of the Union forces. The medal has been forwarded to you today by registered mail. Upon receipt of it, please advise this office thereof. Very respectfully, signed, F. C. Ainsworth, Colonel, U.S. Army, Chief, Record and Pension Office. Summary. The variation from month to month of the proportion of deaths to the whole number of living is singular and interesting. The following facts were taken from the official report shows: in April, 1 in every 16 died. In May, 1 in every 26 died. In June, 1 in every 22 died. In July, 1 in every 18 died. In August, 1 in every 11 died. In September, 1 in every 3 died. In October, 1 in every 2 died. In November, 1 in every 3 died. Does the reader fully understand that in September 1/3 of those in the pen died, that in October 1/2 of the remainder perished, and in November 1/3 of those who still survived died? Let him pause for a moment and read this over carefully again, because its startling magnitude will hardly dawn upon him at first reading. It is true that the fearful disproportionate mortality of those months was largely due to fact that it was mostly the sick that remained behind, but even this diminishes but little the frightfulness of the showing. Did anyone ever hear of an epidemic so fatal that 1/3 of those attacked by it in 1 month died, 1/2 of the remnant the next month, and 1/3 of the feeble remainder the next month? If he did, his reading has been much more extensive than mine. Day and date of greatest number of prisoners at Andersonville: 33,114, August 8, 1864. Day and date of greatest number of deaths: August 23, 1864, 127. Number of prisoners received during its occupation: 45,613. Daily average of deaths during its occupation: 29 3/4. Ratio of mortality per 1,000 of mean strength: 24%. Mortality of 18,000 registered patients: 75%. The war's dead. The total number of deceased Union soldiers during and in consequence of the war is 316,233. Of these, only 175,764 have been identified, and the rest will probably remain forever unknown. Of the grand total, 36,868 are known to have been prisoners of war who died in captivity. There are 72 national cemeteries for the dead of the Union armies, besides which there are 320 local and post cemeteries. The largest of the government grounds are Arlington, Virginia, the former homestead of General Robert E. Lee, 15,547 graves; Fredericksburg, Virginia, 15,300 graves; Salisbury, North Carolina, 12,112 graves; Beaufort, South Carolina, 10,000 graves; Andersonville, Georgia, 13,706 graves; Marietta, Georgia, 10,000 graves; New Orleans, Louisiana, 12,230 graves; Vicksburg, Mississippi, 17,012 graves; Chattanooga, Tennessee, 12,964 graves; Nashville, Tennessee, 16,529 graves; Memphis, Tennessee, 13,958 graves; Jefferson Barracks, near St. Louis, Missouri, 8,601 graves. The National Cemetery near Richmond, Virginia, contains 6,279 graves, of which 5,450 are of unknown dead, mostly prisoners of war. The cemeteries are kept in good condition and are generally well sodded and planted with ornamental trees. Trial of Henry Wirz. In the foregoing pages you will find the name of Captain Henry Wirz, mentioned in several instances as being cruel and inhumane to the Union prisoners. He was tried and convicted of murder, the trial commencing August 23, 1865, and ending October 26, 1865. Hundreds of witnesses testified that he committed murder on 11 soldiers who were confined in Andersonville, Georgia prison. He was sentenced to death, and the sentence was executed at Washington, D.C., between the hours of 10 and 11 o'clock Friday morning, November 10, 1865. His body was interred in the Arsenal grounds. The above was taken from the official report of the trial of Henry Wirz. The end. End of section 12. End of War Prison Diary by Michael Dougherty.